be live. So currently we have one person watching who's probably you.
Uh-huh.
But it says please stand by. I wanted to see if it's. Can you see? Do you have the connection up on YouTube?
Yeah.
Can
There's
you
nothing.
see?
There's nothing there right
There's
now.
nothing there yet. Okay.
Aside from live in 11 hours, it says.
Okay.
Nope,
If-
there it comes.
Currently we have a one.
I muted that.
Yeah, I was gonna say okay. Yeah, because in my screen here it's showing that nothing's up, but it is our video and audio's up on the YouTube.
It was for a second there, and I mean, it looks like it's always, but I paused it because I
Right,
didn't.
right, because you didn't want to.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just type say something if our connection stops. This is the first time I've done this at my new house, so I think it should all work the same. But so all right, thanks everyone for joining us. Oh, it says, are you still on the? Can you
Yeah,
see it?
I closed it, but I saw your message. Before.
Okay, because it says now no one's what. Oh, okay, now it says one person. Whatever, I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah, so thanks everyone for tuning in. If you come as this goes, or if you're seeing it in perpetuity, I'm going to be talking with my friend Tom Kennedy. Tom was my campaign manager when I ran for Congress, but you happen to be a Democrat. So just in general, we're going to, I guess, be focusing mainly on this impeachment and the Biden-Ukraine story. So at the outset, do you want to give your opinion on what's going on with the impeachment proceedings and kind of just your general summary of it?
Well, first of all, I guess my main premise is that I don't think they should be doing it. And my justification is mostly, not so much that I don't know that he didn't do anything, but because I think it's more of from a political standpoint, I don't think it's going to work out for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think they needed to wait until, if they wanted to do it, they needed to wait until they actually had a lot of support to do it from Republicans and stuff like that, which they're not going to get, I don't think. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. Basically, I know that there's a lot of people saying like, "Hey, we have to even if you really don't like him, saying that we need to take a stand and just for precedent's sake impeach him because in that case, even if it doesn't happen, we have some precedent that's like, hey, we weren't allowing this to happen, but it happened anyway." But if you impeach him and then there's some precedent to be set the other way too. If you impeach him and nothing happens, right? Because that means that in the future, even if it's something way more egregious, that a party could still completely support the president, even if they grounds say that they shouldn't.
Your audio's
what?
cutting out just a little.
Oh, sorry.
That's it.
Yeah. So my argument is mostly from a political standpoint. I don't think it's a good move. I don't think it's going to help them win next year because everybody that already didn't like Trump is still not going to like Trump, but I don't think it's going to win them anybody over. Now, I do think. Oh, go ahead. If you were going to say.
Oh no. I was just going to say that my contention is I'm less concerned about the 2020 election. I think that this, to me, is a crisis of our country that literally, if this precedent is continued forward, I don't think that we'll ever see politics as it used to be or as how it was intended to be to play out again. For example, no matter what you think, my contention from the get-go has been this. No matter what the transcript of the phone call actually said, the fact that you had 200 Democrats willing to vote for impeachment before they read the transcript, that's unprecedented. And I don't know how our country recovers from that. Like, obviously, let's say Trump loses in 2020 and Biden or Warren wins. Like, what's to stop then in the midterms if the Republicans take the House of just being like, okay, we're going to impeach and we don't care about what. We're just going to say impeach and we'll find something later.
When they did it, they didn't do, in my opinion, a very good job of selling their case as to why it was time to do it at that point. They could have still, and they did, right? They could have said, hey, if you don't release those documents, we're going to consider impeachment proceedings or something like that, which is basically what they did, except more or less they were like, we're going to have impeachment proceedings.
Yeah, but I mean, what was
actually voting on it? Yeah.
I mean, the timing of it was crazy, and to me, this just reeks of this was a setup from the get-go, and they had a playbook, and they're just going through with the playbook, even though Trump did things they didn't expect. So, for example, they're talking about this whistleblower, and Trump comes out at 2:00 p.m. and says, fine, I'll just release the transcript tomorrow. And then Nancy Pelosi comes out at 5 and is like, yeah, we've decided to do an impeachment inquiry. Why wouldn't she say at 5, like, okay, we're going to get this transcript tomorrow. If he doesn't release it tomorrow, we'll move forward with impeachment. If he does, we'll look at it and then make a decision. But it's clear. Oh, go ahead.
To be fair, by the time that he had announced that they were going to release the transcript, they had more or less in the media covered, hey, this is what Pelosi's going to announce at 5, right?
Yeah, but I mean, she has to be able. She's the one giving the speech. It's not like she's like, oh, I wrote this speech at noon, so I have to give it at 5. I mean, and if you watch, I think
they might have already done the decision at that point. Like, it doesn't matter what he's going to do at this point.
But that proves my point. That what I've said all along, that the Democrats were saying this. They're like, I wish I had like an edit where I could change my voice, but it's like, we, the Democratic Party, are furious that Donald Trump would insert whatever says in the transcript. That is the most damaging thing to the country. Can you imagine a president insert whatever it says in the transcript? Like, it's like they didn't care about the specific details. This is the same party that had 60-something people try to impeach him for saying certain countries were S-hole countries. I mean, it's been clear for 3 years that this is what they wanted, and this situation proves that they didn't care about the details, or else they would have waited to see the transcript.
Yeah, which, again, from a political standpoint, in my mind, if they were going to do all that, it seems like they should have done it earlier.
And I also think that you could see, like I'm saying, that they kind of had this planned out, and they're just going through the motions. For example, the big story in the media yesterday and today is, oh, did you see in the whistleblower complaint? It said that Trump put this conversation in a more secure server. And the Democrats and all the media are out there today like, oh, can you believe this? That seems like such a violation. The damn transcript's been made public. It's a non-story at this point.
So there is something along those lines, I think. I don't know so much about putting it in a more secure server being an issue, but if he did make it, if they did, at the direction of the president, if they made it more classified than they should have, that's not really allowed either.
Why? Right? The president can classify or declassify anything he wants. And the State Departments came out and said that the reason they did this was because, remember all those phone conversations he had with the president of Mexico and the president of Australia that had been leaked? So they started this policy anytime there was a phone call that could be deemed that something from either the president or who he's talking to could be controversial, that they put it in a more secure place. For example, if I was the president of Ukraine, I'd be pissed that he was basically bashing Merkel in in his call with Trump. Yeah. Now it's public. I mean, so if you're the president of Ukraine, like if you're Angela Merkel, aren't you like, oh yeah, really? Guy from Ukraine? And so that's the type of stuff that, I mean, we could get into the press.
But I would imagine that there was probably already something between, I don't know, but I would imagine there's already something that they knew about between the Ukrainian president and Merkel. Otherwise,
well, yes, but you know, it's like, for example, like there are people that I work with that I've had arguments with that they probably know I've said stuff about, but I still don't want them to hear my conversations with my wife about them. Sure. You know, it's like, you know, it just seems crazy, but I don't understand. And on this topic, I guess while we're on it, the Democrats. Go ahead.
They could have just marked that paragraph secret and not the rest.
Yeah, but I mean, this is nitpicking. This is the same thing they did with the FISA warrant, or I'm sorry, not the FISA warrant, with the Mueller report, where Barr comes out and says, here's the summary of the Mueller report. And then 2 weeks later, he releases the report, and the Democrats are still hemming and hawing about, well, we didn't like Barr's summary. The damn report's public. If there's something in the report that you like or don't like, then say it. We can all read it at this point. But instead, they're still focused on what Barr said about it, his summary. It's the same here. They're like, oh, well, there must have been something shady in the report because Trump made it more classified. But or in the call, you could read the call. So who cares if he made it more classified? And the other thing I'll say about it is, isn't it funny that the Democrat stance is Trump making confidential information more secure is evidence of some sort of corruption, but Hillary Clinton taking her stuff and putting it in an unsecure private server and then deleting a lot of it wasn't considered corrupt. Like, what kind of insane backwards world are we living in where that's the case?
Well, like I said, I don't think the actual putting on the server is an actual issue itself. But if it was that they shouldn't have been marking it secret, and the reason they marked it secret was to conceal the fact that they were doing talking about Biden or something like that, then that's an issue. Now, I don't think you have any proof of that.
Right, and the other thing is, like with this whole thing is, everyone, even the whistleblower, admitted that this conversation with the Ukrainian president was considered normal. So it's at the behest of Trump. He could have a conversation with the leader where he basically kicks everyone out of the room and it's just him talking. But he didn't. He did this just like he would any other
Right.
conversation. So if he's really seeking to break some sort of law and have some sort of quid pro quo to help him in the 2020 election, why would he do it in this fashion where 20 something people were in the room and hearing the conversation?
So, yeah, I don't know, but I mean, obviously, from what they have there, there's nothing specifically that's to a quid pro quo. It is all the Democrats, all the that Schiff and people like that have is that it's implied and stuff like that.
Right.
Um,
And
but I mean,
good.
the problem, the main problem there, to go along with that, is the stuff. The biggest problem I think in regard to that line of thinking with is regards to what Trump said over the weekend.
Which is
He's been his own worst enemy when it comes to stuff with this, like to some degree, right?
but
Like he said over the
what
weekend.
specifically over the weekend what that he
He
said?
said over the weekend that so recall that the Ukrainians didn't get the money when they were supposed to get it according to Congress at least, and then when they did get the money, then all of a sudden there was more money than Congress had allocated,
Uh-huh.
right? Um, and I think the Ukrainian president said something about, "Oh, this is very nice" or something like that. I'm not really sure if that's true or not. I thought I heard something about that, but anyway, Trump said something along the lines of, well, of course I didn't. I withheld the money because I don't want to give it to a corrupt country and things like that, right? Until I know that they're not corrupt. But he was like clear that he's, you know what I mean. He's holding on to the money when he already said prior to that in that thing that he knows that their government's good with the current administration and everything like that. And he
But
knows that they're. So how do they prove that they're not corrupt? By opening up an investigation that he asked them to open up?
but
I mean, that's kind of weird.
But this is exactly what this is exactly what Biden claimed was his reason for withholding $1 billion, and everyone in the media and all Democrats and all the EU that they all said yes, we agree. You have to get rid of this corrupt prosecutor because you don't want to give $1 billion to a country that has corrupt law enforcement officials. That was their argument. So when Trump says the same thing, why is it all of a sudden a problem for Trump to say it? And remember, Trump didn't even start off talking about Biden. He only talks about Biden for like 14 seconds. The first thing he asks is investigations into 2016 election interference that came from the Ukraine, whether it be through CrowdStrike or through Lyshenko, and he doesn't mention Lyshenko's name specifically, but he does mention the ambassador that had been accused of giving evidence to the Democratic Party to smear Trump. And so, why was it okay for Obama to use foreign investigators to investigate whether or not there was 2016 election interference that benefited Trump? But now it's a crime for Trump to do the same if it benefited the Democrats.
Um, I don't just because. So as far as with Biden, I don't really necessarily think he's a major point of concern for specifically with Trump. Now, what I would say is, if there's evidence that Biden did stuff, I don't care. Go throw the book at him too, right? That's great. I mean, not great, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Like, if and there was certainly some, regardless of whether or not Biden did it because his son's company was being investigated, it's still icky, right? Why would you have? They specifically hired Biden's son when Biden became like the liaison or whatever for Obama, right?
Right.
To work in that company, which is kind of weird. And they're like, oh, but then they let it happen anyway. But at that point, they should have, if he's involved at all with anything with his son, they should have made sure that he wasn't,
Right.
one
And
that was,
I agree with that. But
even if,
let's look at it this way, okay? Just for the sake of argument, let's assume Biden's guilty. Let's assume that Biden wanted to stop the investigation into his son, okay? And I think, and I'll make the case why I think there's good evidence for that's why that was occurring. But let's assume that's true. In that world, so Biden does that. The Obama State Department does nothing. The Obama administration, they basically sign off on that. The media doesn't investigate. No officials in the United States investigates. The Ukraine's trying to hand evidence off to the United States for at least 2 years about this. No one in the U.S. Department of Justice or the State Department will give them visas or accept this evidence. Is Trump corrupt for trying then to reach out directly to the president of the Ukraine to get this evidence? If Biden's guilty.
the reason that so what I've said before is I think the problem is the tie to Giuliani, right? I don't think Giuliani has any business having anything to do with this. It's because of the fact that they marked it secret. At that point, for sure, the only people that should be having anything to do.
But what marked what? Marked what secret?
They marked the conversation that he had with the Ukrainian president's secret. And in that conversation, they're talking specifically about the Biden investigation and how the United States is going to help them with it. And part of it is that Giuliani's involved.
Well, right,
So
but
at the
all
direction of
conversations with
Giuliani was involved.
all conversations with foreign leaders are marked secret unless otherwise changed. And I'm assuming presidents constantly talk about people in those conversations that don't have security clearances. And
It
there's
doesn't
no,
matter.
but there's no law that says that that you can't have a private individual get dirt or get evidence if the other country's willing to give that evidence. There's no law that says that that's illegal. So I don't understand what the what law do you think's broken by the Ukrainian president or the Ukrainian government willingly giving information to a private U.S. citizen?
I think it's mishandling of government of classified information. I think for Trump to declare that conversation and the things about it were secret, and then direct his personal lawyer, who is not have a clearance that's directly a part of this, he should not be allowed to see that information. He's not more acting on behalf of the government. It's like even if it's not a classification issue, it would be an export-import issue, right? You can't just handle that kind of information.
But Giuliani was in contacts with the Ukrainians before the conversation.
Well, if then it shouldn't have been marked secret.
But
right?
But why? How, the entire conversation secret, not just the part about Giuliani.
They marked,
so it's a
portion marking the conversation, and the portion mark for that part was, I mean, the whole thing was marked secret, but they are supposed to portion mark based on different aspects of what's in each paragraph in that transcript.
That's right. So under your interpretation, during the Obama administration, Dennis Rodman goes to North Korea. So after Rodman goes to North Korea, if Obama picks up the phone and calls Kim Jong-un and says, yeah, how about that crazy Rodman coming to North Korea? All of a sudden, that's a crime impeachable of Obama because
because Rodman wasn't there at the direction of the president.
Okay, well, let's say
Giuliani was doing all of this work at the direction of Trump.
But certainly Obama sent private individuals that weren't official government. He sent people connected to him or people connected to the DNC that weren't working exactly for the executive branch to foreign countries. That I don't understand what the illegality is. Like saying, so if Trump wouldn't have mentioned, so Trump could have sent Giuliani and that was fine, as long as he didn't talk about it in the phone.
So no, I also don't think that Giuliani should have any business dealing with matters of state like that anyway.
So then anytime a private citizen goes over, if they're directed by a member of government, that's impeachable.
He wasn't going as a private citizen. He was going as the president.
Well, I mean, right, but I mean, anytime someone who's not an official, elected official or appointed official to the executive branch or whatever, if a congressional member sends an aide over who's not officially an employee, that would be illegal. That's impeachable anytime they do that.
Well, if they're an aide, they're probably officially an employee.
Well, but you know what I mean. A lawyer of theirs, a family member.
If there's matters of national security at issue, and for things to be marked secret, they're supposed to be of grave national security risk if the information got out.
I just don't see the law. I just don't. I don't see it, and it just seems like this is something that occurs all the time. That you constantly see people.
Well, I didn't say that it doesn't happen other places.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like an incredible reach. I mean, that. Something. I mean, I don't know. It seems amazing. Like, for example, then your campaign chair or you're the person running your campaign. They're not an official employee of the government, so you can't have a campaign chair. So anytime the Podestas for Hillary Clinton would have been talking to foreign leaders of state trying to get dirt, that's a crime. Anytime Obama had people,
that's what they're always saying. If you're talking to a foreign power. To try to get dirt on an opponent, that is a crime, basically, is what.
Yeah, but that's nonsense. Like surely you can't believe that. I mean, that would be almost every administration in the past 30 years.
Well, I would imagine that most presidents have committed crimes that are impeachable at some point.
I just think that I think that that's a huge overreach. I mean, my argument from the get-go was, which I don't mind you, like, certainly you're entitled to your opinion, because my argument the entire time, at least you're implying it consistently. The only thing I have a problem with is people that don't apply it consistently. So when you go back to the original Russia allegation, it was, well, Trump's team got dirt on Hillary from Russians, and that was considered the crime. And then that was like, okay, well, if that's a crime, we know Hillary's team got dirt on Trump from Kremlin officials, so what's the difference? My interpretation is, hey, that's just politics. It might be shady, but I don't think it's a crime. You can get dirt from foreign assets all you want. Now, if you use that dirt and don't verify it to spy on people or use it as an official document for something like that, then it's a problem. But I don't think getting the dirt is in itself a bad thing. I mean, what if the allegations are that Ukraine didn't trust the FBI, that they didn't trust even the DOJ because they had been stymied from getting visas to come to the United States to give this evidence, and that they tried to reach out directly to the New York Attorney General's office and they didn't accept the evidence. So that Ukraine said, let's have Zelensky's top lawyer meet with Trump's top lawyer. If that happened and it was Ukraine's idea, is it still illegal to you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Giuliani should have been talking to those people, right? I don't think if they were trying to go through the State Department and the Attorney General's office and things like that, that's still the official government channels. There might be corruption or something like that because it was stopped. They weren't able to do it. But I still know business with it.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, fair enough. That I guess. But
the other issue with the mishandling of classified information that's more obvious is that picture that he sent out last month. But they haven't made a huge deal about that. Right, so that's not really their argument.
What picture?
The picture of the Saudi oil fields being attacked or whatever that he tweeted out last month. That was classified. He can't just.
He could retroactively declassify anything he wants. He could come out today and he could do whatever he wants. I mean, it doesn't matter. That's not a crime. If they try to impeach him, if they say it's a crime, he'll just say it's not classified.
He took his phone into a secure area, which he's not allowed to do.
Who? Trump?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Did. What?
Yes, he is. He's allowed to
take an unclassified phone into an area like that.
Yes, he is. He's allowed to. Everything that is classified by the executive branch is at the behest of the president. He could do whatever he wants. He could. Now, you could say it's impeachable. You could say endangered national defense, but it's not a crime.
I would say that it. Yeah, I would say it's impeachable.
I'm
not saying it's good. I'm saying it is.
I just think that I mean, it's nitpicking. I mean, to me, it's just. That's the type of stuff that, and it's such like that's fine that it's your opinion, but you would agree that means that basically most presidents should have been impeached.
Well, I don't, on that specific one, it's not like other presidents have gone and taken a picture with their phone and then cut out the classification portions and then tweeted it. That's not a thing that people have done.
I mean, it's just, so what? They leak it to the press and have them do it.
They don't leak photos like that.
Sure they do. Sure, we have all sorts of stuff from Obama's administration where they were leaking stuff. You know, look at the leaks they had. Remember when, who was it, at the State Department that leaked all the information, classified information, unmasked about Flynn and all that stuff?
But that wasn't photos like that.
Well, so if it's a photo, it's illegitimate, but if it's just classified information and the results of the investigation into your opponent, it's okay?
It's a matter of national security with something with that photo.
I mean, so in other words, you could leak something for your personal benefit, and that's not a crime if you're president. But if you leak a picture that has nothing to do with personally benefiting you in an election.
Well, I didn't say that it had anything to personally benefit him.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. So it's even worse what Obama did, the unmasking of people. I mean, it just, how exactly was national security affected anyways? I mean, if that's the case for impeachment, we gave $1 billion in a pallet of cash to Iran. That affects national security. Now it's just a matter of the policy implications. Like, if Trump wanted to leak that photo because he thought it helped our national security in some way, even if you think that's childish or foolish, I don't understand why he doesn't have the right to do that.
Well, I don't even know that I consider that a leak. I mean, he did it on purpose.
Right.
And it was clearly him. But
I mean, I just think it's such, to me, and my stance from the get-go has been this. With everything that's gone on since Trump's been elected, if he's guilty of crimes, fine, charge him. All I want to do is see that those are applied evenly to everyone. And case after case after case, we see that people connected to Trump are pressured and applied investigations as hard as possible, and the people connected to the establishment, it's the exact opposite. And my contention with wanting to elect Donald Trump, I wanted it to be Trump versus Bernie, though I no longer like Bernie. Not that I liked him, but both of them seem like potential outsiders to the establishment. And I thought that that would out the corruption in the establishment. And I have not seen a better example than what's happened this week, where you've had 200-something Democrats want to vote for impeachment before they read a transcript. We have a CIA whistleblower who isn't a whistleblower. He's a hearsayer, or she. I mean, it's just insanity.
Do we know that person's CIA?
Yes, that's what was reported in the New York Times. And, well, I mean, theoretically, the report could be wrong, I guess, but...
Well, but that's been reported in the media, at least at the CIA. That's why I hadn't seen that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And so the story is the New York Times reported this, and then the lawyer for the hearsayer, because I'm not going to call him a whistleblower anymore, came out and said, how dare you out facts about this whistleblower? They want to remain anonymous, which is ridiculous in its own right. Yeah, but so now there's a movement, a bunch of lefties canceled the New York Times because the New York Times helped Trump by outing facts about the whistleblower.
It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's stupid, but this whistleblower should have to come forward because, again, it's not a whistleblower. It's a hearsayer. And if you read the actual law, the whistleblower law, for the
intent... that whistleblower stuff, it said that there were attachments that were included that were classified, right? So there's probably other stuff that wasn't.
Oh, no. He admits, whoever the whistleblower is, admits that they didn't have firsthand knowledge of any of this stuff.
Right. But he said that some of it was backed up with attachments, and there were attachments, but they were classified.
Yeah, but nonetheless, if you read the intelligence community IG documents that talk about whistleblower protection, it says it only applies to people with firsthand knowledge. So this person isn't a whistleblower anyways. They're a leaker. That's what they did. They leaked confidential information. You were only a whistleblower. If this person's a whistleblower, then so am I. Because he cites as proof of all these accusations, well, I read about it in the media. And we know that half the accusations he made weren't true. For example, he said that, I can't remember the guy's specific name, but he gave a specific name of a person who said it on the call. That person came out yesterday and said, I wasn't there. He said that Trump said that he wanted this server from the Ukraine. He never said that. He said that they exchanged pleasantries and then the rest of the call was Trump asking for favors. That's not true at all. So, I mean, all of this stuff that he said ended up not being true. And we know that he admits from the outset, these are just rumors I heard. So why is this not, to me, I don't understand how it's a whistleblower in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, with what we have so far, I don't think there's any proof from anything that the whistleblower stuff has come out with that's useful.
Yeah, and the irony is...
There's classified attachments. I have no idea what's in those.
Yeah, but I mean... I guess. But I mean, this is always the case, isn't it? I mean, every single time we can see that there's some sort of corruption that went into an investigation or a leak or something with Trump. The arguments are, like, for example, the FISA documents. Well, unless we see 100% of the FISA warrant, you know, maybe it was legitimate to use this unverified Steele dossier that was paid for by Hillary Clinton to spy on people who's connected to Trump's campaign. Because there's one little thing that's redacted, so how do we know? You know? Or, you know, what I would say about the Mueller report, like, we know for a fact that the most effective example of Russia interfering in our election was the Kremlin officials that gave Christopher Steele fake information that led to spying on Trump campaign officials that we're still talking about today. That was the most effective interference from Russians. Why didn't Mueller talk about it once? And when you say this, people are like, well, there were those couple of lines in the Mueller report that were redacted. You know, I just don't buy it. The burden of proof's on them, and, you know, I don't know what could be in that classified material that would make this okay.
Right, but again, I don't think so far they've opened it. They haven't actually opened the inquiry yet, but they were basing it on more than just that. I think. Now that like I said, I don't think they should do it.
Right. Well, yes, and I know that, and let me just make clear for everyone watching. You think regardless they shouldn't do it. You think that the way, let me put it this way, and tell me if I'm summarizing what you're saying right. What they're claiming is impeachable, you don't believe is. You think that maybe having Giuliani involved was impeachable, but they're not saying that. They're saying
what they're claiming is impeachable. They haven't done enough proof to me to make me think that it's impeachable.
Right, and you also think that even though you think there's shady stuff with the Giuliani thing, that you wouldn't pursue impeachment because you think it's a loser for the Democrats to do so.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So just so people that are listening are clear, I disagree with the Giuliani thing, but fair enough. We won't, I guess, if you don't mind, if you want to go back to it later, we can, but since that's not what's being discussed in the actual Democratic Party with their impeachment, like I was, you know, we could probably just focus more on what they're discussing. So one of the things that blows my mind is the whistleblower, when they wrote that whistleblowing document, and again, I should stop calling them a whistleblower. I'm calling them the hearsayer or the leaker, right? But when they wrote that document, they knew less than me and you know right now because they never saw the transcript. So don't you find it amazing that the Democrats then push to have the whistleblower complaint made public, and then once it's public, they're like, aha, see? Like, I don't understand how that helps the Democrats whatsoever.
Having what helps them? Doesn't help them, you're saying?
Yeah, I don't see how it helps them because we actually know more than the whistleblower knew. We've seen the transcript.
Well, there was a little bit more to what the whistleblower said than specifically that meeting.
Yeah, but everything else is just like, well, there's other factors that kind of speak to the crescendo of that call.
But there's no evidence that's been presented to us aside from somebody just saying that he heard this. Right.
Yeah, and so another thing about the whistleblower complaint is, once more, this is the second document we see that led to an investigation of the president where media sources are cited to back up the claims being made by the person. So we know with the FISA warrant that Christopher Steele said, that Comey said, by the way, there were media reports that back up what Steele said. Now we later found out that media report was the confidential informant to the media was Steele himself. Yeah. Just like this, we're seeing, don't you think it's suspicious that we now know that Adam Schiff received this document in early August, and he's tweeting things from media sources that are almost the exact same language that the whistleblower complaint that would be made officially like 6 days later says. In other words, it seems really suspicious that we have this constant leak of things coming from the intelligence community to the media, and then the media saying this stuff's true, and then the intelligence community people saying, see, the media's researched it and says it's true as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's problems with it for sure. I mean, they've spiraled out of control with stuff at the moment, right? They need to, and that's the problem with the 24-hour news cycle, right? They try to make stories, and they want to get clicks, they want to get views and things like that, as opposed to just sitting back and waiting and making sure that they have all the facts before they start reporting on things.
Right, and but my contention is it's bad enough that the media is so influential anyways when it comes to deciding how people vote. So I talk about all the time, like, we have these cultural institutions of power that basically shape the public narrative. And that would be like the entertainment industry, academia, the mainstream media, Silicon Valley. These are the groups that most of the stuff we're discussing, they're kind of controlling the conversation. And they all seem to lean establishment Democrat. Which, by the way, don't get me wrong, that probably also means that people you like, Tom, that you would like to see as a Democrat don't get their fair shake. Like, I know you're a Klobuchar fan. Well, how much does the media talk about her? So she's just screwed, right? Because they don't want to talk about her.
I don't know that they've really talked about her too much aside from that thing at the very beginning of her campaign that she yells at her staffers, and it's like, well, okay.
Which I could care less. That's such a non-story. Right. In fact, you probably want someone like that.
It's yes, then I don't care.
Right. But, so that's bad enough that they control the narrative, which could actually affect outcomes and could swing votes. But now we know that they also could directly lead to investigations to stymie an administration. And so the fact that me and you know that they get things wrong all the time seems to be very problematic, that despite knowing that we have to take them serious when we're talking about investigations and that lead to all sorts of things that have national security implications, basically grinding the administration to a halt. Oh, you there?
Yeah. Did you say something that I was supposed to respond to?
Oh, no. No, I'm just running my mouth. But no, I just think that that's a huge problem, right? So when we talk about the problems of the media, one, again, everything, not to brag, but I love bragging about myself. It just seems like everything I said leading into the 2016 election, the reason I was voting for Trump, to out this corruption, to show that the intelligence community, what I called the deep state, which people laughed at me for, was real, and that the media was a mouthpiece for it. All of that's true. All of it's been shown to be true, like beyond my wildest imagination. And it's okay.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't vote for him and I didn't want him, but I thought that he had the outsider thing. He could do some of this kind of stuff, and some of this stuff I believe he's exposed some of it to some degree. The problem is I don't think he's been above board in the way that he needs to be to do a very good.
And
takes his job, and the rest of Americans do.
That's fair enough. I disagree, but that's fair enough. My contention's been all along, because you have a lot of people that say, look, Trump's actually... The more conspiratorial you get, the more you find people that say things like this. Everyone is deep state, right? If you were elected president, that means you're deep state. And so Trump's just one of the establishment the same. My contention is I don't have to prove that Trump's not part of the establishment. I don't think he is, but I don't have to prove it. All I have to prove is that the establishment was worried about Trump. And I think that's clear. I think they were also worried about Bernie in the 2016 election.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
And so then, I'm not one of these Trump's playing 4D chess people. I'm not someone that says, I think that Trump's lucky that these Democrats happen to be probably the most politically inept people that have ever ran for office in any country. I mean, every single time Trump does something that I'm like, the Democrats come out and immediately shoot themselves in the foot by doing something stupid about it. For example, Trump could say, yeah, did you see that attack in Sweden last night? All the Democrats had to say was like, hey man, stop watching Fox News. There was no attack in Sweden last night, right? That's all they had to say. But instead they say, yeah, there was no attack in Sweden last night. And actually, Sweden's a wonderful place where these attacks never occur. And then it's like, well, that's not true. Grenade attacks and terrorist attacks have been going through the roof there. And so it's just stupid stuff like that that they do over and over. But anyways, what I'm saying is, I don't think some of Trump's actions have led to the outing of this corruption and the outing of the media's corruption as well. But it's more just his existence. Like, he doesn't have to do anything and they out themselves. That to me, and so, go ahead.
But at that point, I also agree that I guess I agree. This is my thought. So I don't know if you probably don't agree with what I'm going to say here. I think his presence has made this, and this is the reason that I don't want him around anymore. And I don't say he should be impeached. I want to vote him out.
Okay.
I think he has made the country a worse place because for both directions, right? Similar to what you're saying with the media, everybody has grounded themselves more to their stances, both directions, right? Mm-hmm. Even when Trump says something stupid, you have people that really like Trump that's like, oh, that's not stupid. That's 100% correct. And I believe everything he says. And then you have the Democrats that are just like, well, we should have to impeach him because he's an idiot and all these other things, right? And it's just like, why don't we just be normal?
Okay. That's what and I agree with that. I get frustrated sometimes. Like, for example, when Trump bombed Syria, I was completely against it. And I was told, and I think you know me well enough, I think I've been as vocal as a Trump supporter as there is, I've been defending him with my entire YouTube channel before I had the YouTube channel.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, okay. I was told by Trump supporters that, I was a Democrat in disguise. I sold out because I disagreed with Trump's policy to bomb Syria. That's ridiculous. No one should be of a cult of personality so much that they'll never criticize a person. If we're honest with ourselves, no one in the history of the world will ever totally agree with us.
Right.
And that means no political party will ever totally agree with us. So you should never say, well, I'm unwilling to criticize because I support the person more than I support my beliefs and ideals. That's definitely true. But, go ahead.
At this point, he's been president for 2.5 years or a little bit more than that. And if you haven't found anything that he's done that you don't like, or if you're somebody that doesn't like him, but you haven't found anything that he's done that you do like, then you're what's wrong with America.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's probably something wrong with yes. Right. But what I would say to you is, one, the situation, again, like going back to the corruption, we've been talking about people that are conservative. We've been talking about kind of the media's corruption for years and years and how they're just mouthpieces for the establishment Democrat. And we were told, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. We can clearly see it is that bad. And it has always been that bad. They haven't been as direct and as blatant, but they're clearly corrupt and not interested in journalism. They're interested in their side winning. So when then you get Trump to come in, I can understand why there are people that are so furious, that are attacked so often and are lied to so often, that their tendency is to just be like, look, this guy's the avatar for our frustration, and we're going to back him no matter what. Now, I agree with you that I think that that's a mistake, but still I would say that I understand that coming from that level. And the other thing I'd say is, if you have a problem with that and you think Trump's making it worse, who are you going to vote for that you think would be different? Because we see almost the entire people that are running as the Democrats are insane. They say everything Trump does is evil. They say he's a racist, blah, blah, blah. So,
well, not Klobuchar, to be fair.
well, I'm sure she doesn't get the press, but I'm sure.
I'm sure she's used rhetoric that I wouldn't use to describe some things.
Right.
But she's also, there's a couple of things that she said, oh, yeah, I agreed with him on this.
I mean, what's her stance on impeachment?
Oh, at this point, she's probably for it, but all the Democrats are for it, right? I'm not sure if is there any of the mainstream, except for Tulsi?
I think Tulsi's the only one, right?
The only one that I've heard that's come out against it. I don't know if everybody's announced that they're for it or not.
So, but then if Klobuchar's appointed, you don't think it'll just be more the same if she would win?
Oh, I didn't say that.
Right. But so then what's...
Either way. I think it would be less divisive if she won. I think it'd be less impressive if anybody won that wasn't Trump, regardless if they were Republican or Democrat.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter to me because that's like just sweeping the problem back under the rug. To me,
but I don't want to go to like a civil war or anything either. So
well, yeah, of course you don't. But the best chance we have is for the corruption to be so blatant and get to the point where it crescendos so much that even people that don't like Trump would be like, "Holy cow!" That's what I think. That's how I see this impeachment thing. Now, it's not to that point yet because, again, the media and all the establishment left that controls the narrative. But I think that there are people that before the election of Trump would have said, like, you're crazy, the intel community's not that bad, you're crazy, the media's not that bad, that are now starting to wake up, that were moderates or that were somewhat Democrats that are like, this is insane. It's absolute insanity. And I think that if we go back, if Trump's rebuked, then that's the signal to the media and to the intel community that, yes, the game continues as it always was. And then we go back to, we get someone in there that, it's deemed a good person because they're a Democrat and they're not a racist and they're not Hitler. And so they get in and do what they want. And it's not going to make things any better. It'll look better on the surface. But then the precedent's been set. Anytime someone who disagrees with those people come in, you could do anything you want. Which at least is my feeling on it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I want to phrase it the way that I'm going to say it anyway. I don't know that I give as negative, I don't know what I want to say. The way that people are behaving, like the media and what you're saying, the intel agencies, things like that. I don't know that I want that, in my opinion, that I agree that they're acting in the same way that you are saying that they're acting.
Oh,
Well, yeah, you think that because you just said that.
Right. But I mean, like, for example, 2 times in 1 week, we had the media and the Democrats call for impeachment of people based on secondhand information with no factual basis. So with Kavanaugh, we had some guy come out and say, who, by the way, worked for Clinton as a defense attorney while Kavanaugh was working on his impeachment. We had this guy come out and say, I saw Brett Kavanaugh basically be sexual assaulted because if you look at the allegation, it was Kavanaugh was naked, someone grabbed his genitals against his wish and pushed him into a woman's hand. Now, the woman has no memory of the event, but despite that was cause for impeachment by the media and by the Democrats. That's insanity.
Jumping on nothing. Yeah, I agree.
So
my argument is slightly different from you with the media, right? You seem to think, and I know, and I think you believe this, that it's all they're pushing their agenda, is what you're saying, right? I still don't think they're necessarily pushing an agenda. I think they're pushing the how do I get the most revenue from people watching or clicking on my stuff. But for some of the websites, that's a liberal agenda. For Fox News, it's a more conservative one, right? I don't think that it's necessarily they're pushing their agenda. They're just trying to make money. Now, that's still not a very good motivation. That's the word I've been looking for this whole time, motivation. But that's just my thoughts on the matter. If that makes sense.
So then, don't you think it would be more of a 50-50 split then? Don't you? Like when we see Fox News has the biggest share of the pie when it comes to those networks, which, by the way, my argument is that Fox is becoming more and more left-wing. Fox has plenty of anti-Trump people. Cavuto doesn't like Trump. Shep Smith doesn't like Trump. Donna Brazile doesn't like Trump. Juan Williams doesn't. I mean, there's plenty of people on Fox that are not Trump supporters. And
well, they probably had some ratings loss at some point, and they wanted to get more people to watch or something.
But if Fox has the biggest share of the pie, don't you think it'd be closer to 50-50? That there would be left-wing outlets? Because we know that 90% of the mainstream media is establishment left. Don't you think there'd be some that would be like, hey, let's become pro-Trump because we could get our share of the clicks that those people are getting?
I would guess that some of the problem is with the established ones, they've probably tried to some degree at some points, and then it just doesn't work out for them because the people that are going to their websites aren't the people that don't trust them that to have that kind of article. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know. I get what you're saying, but like, it just seems suspicious. It's always like, for example, we know there are all kinds of things that go against that narrative. Like, we're told all the time, oh, on YouTube, the problem with YouTube is it's a bastion for alt-right thinking and for right-wing thinking. And here's all these studies that show that all these YouTube content creators that are right-wing, yet YouTube's out to censor them. Same with Twitter. Because we have all these other platforms that are controlled by the establishment left. So you have right-wing people going to these social media platforms. Yet these social media platforms are going after people like PewDiePie that are making them tons of money. PewDiePie made YouTube more money than any other content creator. So yet they're siding with the media.
You're getting into Silicon Valley there.
What's that?
You're getting into Silicon Valley, not the media there. But I didn't say that I disagreed with you on Silicon Valley.
Okay, but you don't. So you think that Silicon Valley is doing it for ideological reasons, but the media isn't?
For the most part, they're pretty liberal. Silicon Valley.
I mean, you don't think that most of the media is pretty liberal?
Some of it, yeah, to some degree. But I also don't. I also think that for the most part, a lot of the people in the media want to tell whatever the real story is, but they are also under pressure to make sure that there's enough people reading their stuff. If they were really worried about only telling the story, then it would take longer for these stories to come out, right? They shouldn't be releasing things in little bits and pieces. They're doing that because they're getting clicks.
Yeah, but they're also doing it because it ideologically benefits them. I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because regardless of the intent, the outcome's the same. It's corrupt and it's for the establishment Democrats. So whether they're doing it because they want the Democrats to win, which I think's almost blatant to see, or whether they're doing it because they're only interested in money, fine, whatever. The outcome's the same. It was corrupt all along. It was always for the establishment Democrats. You know? And when you factor that in with, it's not just the media, is the entertainment industry doing it for, are they all liberal and shouting liberal causes?
California for the most part. Right?
Okay, so, what about academia?
That's just, I mean, that's what they think, right? That's
right.
Their, it's the whole echo culture thing, right? Once you're in echo chamber, I guess, once you're in a society with all and everybody else is the same, you start thinking, and then it just gets worse and worse, right?
So if we know Silicon Valley, it's that they're ideologically slanted this way and they're willing to do this. We know academia, we know the entertainment industry, and we know that the mainstream media, the majority of them self-identify as basically establishment left-wing or establishment Democrat. But the media is the only group that actually doesn't operate because of their ideology. The other three groups I talked about did. This group has that ideology, but that's not their motivation. I mean, I don't know. To me, that just seems... but again, I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, I also... Okay. The intel agencies, right, I don't think, for the most part, are acting under foreign motivations either, right? I know you might say that with some of the higher-up people, but I don't agree with you for the most part. With
Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Strzok, Page, McCabe. You don't think all of those were ideologically opposed to Trump?
At that point, those people are all basically politicians, though, right?
But they're controlling, they control the investigation. Like, take Peter Strzok. Peter Strzok was the point man for both the Hillary and Russia investigations. Now, if he's ideologically driven, don't you think that's an enormous problem?
Yeah, if that's really what his motivation is, yeah. But that doesn't mean it is.
Okay. It seems pretty clear to me when his private text messages saying, I could smell Trump supporters at Walmart. We need an insurance policy against Trump. Hillary should win like 1 million votes to none. Like, it seems that we know his ideology. His claim is, well, that's not what motivated me. Even the IG report said that he couldn't prove that. He couldn't prove that he was ideologically motivated. He proved that Strzok was, I won't say corrupt. He proved that he was terrible in his job, that he violated protocol, and that he did a horrible job. And he proved that he was ideologically for Hillary Clinton. He just couldn't prove that that's why he was horribly corrupt. But yeah. I think that if it's one person, maybe. When it's a pattern of the entire leadership over and over, there seems to be a problem. And by the way, the left used to think this, right? When Iraq War was going on, I mean, I was young. I was like, what? 2001, 2002, I was
2003 that we started the war.
Yeah. Right. So that was my first year in college. You know, I remember all the leftists being against the Iraq War, and what they were telling me was, oh, the intel agencies are corrupt and they keep lying us into these wars. And I was like, yep, I agree. And then now
a lot of them weren't against it.
What's that?
Right. At the start, a lot of them weren't against it. Hillary and Biden, for instance, both.
Right, and I don't mean them. I mean normal people. Right, what it became, there was a big protest movement.
The academia that was against it.
Yeah, but I think it went beyond that. I think there was, just like Vietnam, I think there was a movement where people were kind of fed up. They felt like they were lied to. Normal people, I think, felt like, hey, there was a
Before
problem
the
here.
war started?
What's that?
Before the war started?
No, after it.
Oh, well, after the war started. Sure, after the war started.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then we found out that we were lied to. Yeah.
Yes,
Sure.
and so everyone said, well, the intel agencies are corrupt. They lied to us. These people
Why?
wanted the war. The military-industrial complex wanted this war. Now we're being told by those same people 15 years later, we have to trust the intel communities. When they're ideologically against Trump, that doesn't matter. We have to take their word for it. I have CNN telling me that it hurts America to question the intel community. We have Chuck Schumer going on national television saying Trump shouldn't question the intel community on Stephanopoulos' show, because if he does, they'll find 6 ways of Sunday of attacking him and getting back at him. Like, that's an incredible statement. And so when we know the leadership of these communities are ideologically opposed to Trump, and then it just so happens we start to see all this stuff. Oh, well, protocol was broken by Comey doing this, happened to go after Trump. We're going to find out with the IG report. Oh, well, the FISA warrants were illegal. Oh, it just so happened that the FBI was spying on Trump. Oh, it just so happens they didn't give him a defensive briefing on possible Russian interference. Like, every single step, it turns out that the intel community was going after Trump. I mean, that's an incredible admission. An admission that if his name was Obama, everyone on the left would be up in arms about. But because it's Trump and people don't like him, they're okay with it. That's incredible to me.
Yeah.
Now, I guess, so, like, just to talk more specifically on that, so, do you think it's a big deal if Biden, at the behest of the Obama administration, or at least with their blessing, extorted $1 billion to stop an investigation into his son?
If that turns out to be the case, yeah, I think that's a big deal for sure.
Okay, now, let me ask you this.
And like I said before, I think that there's at least just cause that they should be able to at least be able to say there was no reason that even if Biden was doing it for all the right reasons, there's no reason that Biden should have been the one doing it if his son's company was impacted.
Okay, that's definitely true. And do you think there should have been an investigation when it occurred?
If people knew about it.
I mean, they clearly did. I mean, it was public evidence that Biden's son was, for example, the New York Times 4 months before Biden made this threat contacted Biden's office and said, hey, your son's company's under investigation by this guy Shokin in the Ukraine. Do you have a comment? So Biden, they knew about it. The New York Times knew. Right,
but I thought at the time that they had reported that the investigation had been closed, but now the stuff that has come out now has said that it wasn't closed.
Right. Well, they said that the specific investigation into Britain, matters that occurred in Britain, that had closed. But nonetheless, like, they knew then that the Obama administration withheld $1 billion of aid until this prosecutor was fired, right? They knew that as well. Because you had that's why they say Christine Lagarde and the Atlantic Council, they all defended that. They all said at the time, yes, this is the right thing to do.
Well,
so they knew that.
They didn't know about the withholding the $1 billion until Biden announced that thing that he was at earlier in this year, right? I thought that's when that came out.
Well, we know that the Obama administration withheld $1 billion until this person was fired. We knew that.
Right, but I thought we didn't know that until Biden said about it earlier this year.
Oh, no, I think that this...
Maybe we just didn't find out that Biden specifically was the one that was the one...
Well, that might be true, but we knew the Obama administration withheld $1 billion, and we knew that this guy Shokin was at least on paper investigating Biden's son. We knew that the Obama administration threatened to withhold $1 billion unless this prosecutor was fired. That was public knowledge. Whether or not Biden was the point man or exactly how they said it, maybe we didn't know. But all the more reason for a media to investigate it, right?
Well, to be clear, I don't know that they thought that they were investigating Biden's son. It was Biden's son's company that he worked for, right?
Well, but that's a horse apiece. I mean, that would be like saying, if Trump Industries was under investigation, but not Trump himself, so no media looked into. I mean, come on, like
it's not Biden's company that he owns, right?
But he was on the board of directors.
Oh, yeah, but a lot of people are on board of directors. That's what rich people do. They somehow get on board of directors for things and get richer.
I mean, I think that it's blatantly obvious that if it had been the other way, if Don Jr. was on the board of directors at a company, and the Trump administration, even if Trump didn't do it himself, even if he sent someone in his cabinet to say, hey, we're going to withhold $1 billion until the prosecutor looking at the company that Trump's son's on the board of directors, I think that people would have been outraged.
Probably.
And so why should it be different when it's Biden?
People are outraged.
Who? The Democrats are saying for Trump to even look into it's a crime. They're calling it a conspiracy theory. The Washington Post is putting articles out today saying John Solomon's a co-conspirator with Trump in making up this conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
I mean, so what the Democrats have set up are the conditions to even investigate possible corruption done by members of their party is considered a crime. Because that could affect the 2020 election. But isn't that exactly what the Obama administration did to Trump? They said, we have evidence of election interference, and therefore we're going to work with the UK, we're going to work with other Five Eyes allies such as Australia, we're going to work with Kremlin officials that have dirt that show that people connected to Trump's team possibly got 2016 election interference. How is what Trump's doing different other than he sent Giuliani?
Well, like I said before, it doesn't bother me if they're going to come back and say what Obama did and what Biden did or whoever did was wrong, and then they should be in trouble for it.
But they're not going to. I don't have a problem with that either. Like, if they want to say, yes, this is criminal, and so Trump goes to jail, and Obama goes to jail, and Biden goes to jail, everyone in the executive branch under Obama that knew about that extortion effort goes to jail, and Bob Menendez and Patrick Leahy and Dick Durbin all go to jail because they pressured the Ukraine, and we're going to retroactively look for the past 20 years anytime that anybody tried to get a foreign government to participate in an investigation to someone that was in the other party, they all go to jail. I'm cool with that. If that's the new precedent, no problem.
I agree with you.
Yeah, and so that's the absurd.
But they're also not going to convict Trump. So
right. But that to me is, to me, this is the story. We could talk about Giuliani. We could talk about the media to Trump being a bad. The story is that our system is so corrupt that there are impeachment. The government, again, is grinding to a halt because the Democrats, the same thing that we knew they did over and over and over again, are accusing Trump of committing a crime. And the media goes along with it. This is a crisis of this country. If this were to succeed, it will be a civil war. There is no doubt in my mind, none, that if Trump would get impeached over this and removed from office, the actual impeachment won't matter, there'd be a civil war. There is no doubt in my mind.
You'll recall that I didn't want it to happen.
What's that? Well, right, but again,
I don't know for sure that that'll happen, but I don't think it would be good, right? People, it'll make America worse, just like I've been saying the whole time, right? Like, I don't like how we've been treating each other, right. And it'll only get worse with this going down. That's basically
right. And so I just don't understand. I can't think of a political situation. Now, obviously, 9/11, things that involve physical attacks from outside countries and stuff, that's different, right? Don't get me wrong. But I can't think of a political situation that was as dangerous as this in the history of our country. I really can't. I don't know, you're literally talking about usurping the will of the people because you could, through innuendo and through media corruption, just oust any elected official that you don't like. I mean, it's that simple. They wanted to impeach before they even read the transcript. The facts don't matter. It's just get rid of this guy. And we have an election coming up in a year. If you don't like him and if the people are against him, then just vote him out, right?
Right. That's my thinking.
I mean, one of the things that I think could be ironic, I have to look at the specific laws in this. What if Trump got impeached and removed and ran for president in 2020 and won?
I'm pretty sure he would win. Could win. I'm pretty sure that would be okay.
Right. I think he could win, but does it count? Can he have 2 terms after that then? Because he didn't finish his first term?
He's already served 2 years of this term, right?
Oh, is that how it works? 2 years of the term
counts. Be able to run one more time.
Yeah, I wasn't sure on that one. But, I mean, it just is insane. I mean, it is clear this is a naked attempt at a power grab. I mean, it's just clear. And it's clear that me and you know that, and I know that the media knows that, and the Democrats and Adam Schiff know that, and they don't care. It's blatant. And this is exactly why I wanted Trump outed, to show how corrupt the system is in the first place. Because no person that is truly independent of this corruption on the right or left will get a different treatment than Trump's getting. Tulsi Gabbard would never be able to win as a Democrat because the establishment, both on the Republican and Democrat side, it doesn't matter, would destroy her. And so this is the ultimate example of your vote doesn't matter. You put someone in there that the intel community didn't like, and so now they must be destroyed. And they will do it in the most blatant way possible. And it's so blatant, but you look around, and it truly reminds me of George Orwell, where it's like, the corruption is so in your face that the average person's just like, what are we going to do? And I mean, it's a really scary thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to some degree there.
I just don't like. So if we could talk about
I wish I could be more on board with you, and the way that would have happened is if Trump wouldn't have been an ass the 3 years that he's been president.
But we can't get rid of some. I mean, I don't.
Right?
Look,
No, I know, but I mean, he could have tried. He was in a unique opportunity, right? That he could have tried to reach out to other people and tried to not have everybody hate him, and instead he just doubled down and tried to make everything more ridiculous. And if he it would be so much easier if he hadn't.
Okay, there are things he did that I like. For example, when he's tweeting about Rosie O'Donnell or something, it's like, yeah, whatever. Or Arnold Schwarzenegger's new show. I agree. But let me say it like this. I don't think that type of person could have won in the position that Trump did, right? If Trump wasn't who he was, he wouldn't have won. And I don't mean because he insulted people. I don't even mean that. I mean his character, the type of person he is.
When he was a candidate, he was Donald Trump, the character candidate or whatever, right?
Right.
What he became. But he should have then pivoted to Donald Trump, the president.
But I mean,
instead of being Donald Trump, the candidate, the whole time.
But like, how? What? See, this is one of the Here's how I'll criticize that. Right? Isn't that what the Republicans have always done? Right? The Republicans, it's like, well, don't fight back. Just leave the media smear. Remember when they were saying Mitt Romney was Hitler? Remember when they were saying John McCain was a racist? They say that every time. And what does John McCain and Mitt Romney do? They say, okay. What are the Republicans in the Senate doing right now? They see these attacks occurring over and over. Are they subpoenaing records on Joe Biden and Hunter Biden?
No.
And every time we have an IG referral, right, to Barr from the Inspector General, who I think the Inspector General is one of the most up and up people we have, Horowitz, he recommends a criminal referral to Comey. What's Barr do? Well, if he was like Trump, he would say, damn straight, get the investigation started. But he doesn't, because it's constantly. We expect one side to be batshit crazy and be corrupt and go after the Republicans or anyone outside of them as hard as possible. But then we expect those people that are being attacked like that to be completely civil and completely, do things by the book and reach out to the other side. A person that's like that would never go through this process in the first place. They'd say, my God, it's not worth the attacks on me and my family. So the only person you're going to get is someone who's going to fight back and say, yeah, kiss my ass. You're going to treat me like this? I'm going to treat you like that.
But it's one thing to treat the political class that disagrees with you like that. It's another thing to mistreat the rest of the country who disagrees with you.
But who? I've not heard Donald Trump one time insult the voters of Hillary Clinton, insult the voters of the Democrats. I heard over and over and over the Democrats do that to Trump supporters. Show me the example of Trump ever saying anything about voters of any of the Democrats.
Well,
I haven't seen it.
I'm sure he said something at some point.
I haven't seen it. He's always been... He'll say that Baltimore is a shithole, right? Yeah. It is. That's a true statement. But he doesn't say the people there are. Yeah, it's unpresidential talk, but that stuff doesn't bother me. Like, the stuff that could theoretically... Well, I mean, I guess if it bothers you, it bothers you. I mean, the problem is, like, it's like when you... Like, I know me and you're both sports fans, so it's like when you watch, a quarterback after he lost the game in his press conference, and everybody knows that there's a certain speech he's supposed to give, right? Oh, it's my fault, and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, you'd like to hear the truth, right? You'd like to hear who Cam Newton really is, for him to say, you know what, my team sucks. The offensive line's terrible. I don't have a receiver that can catch a ball. Greg Olson's 500 years old, and he's my best receiver. That's what you would like to hear, the truth. But instead you hear, it's on me, and, we'll try better next week. And so Trump's just like, we constantly say, we wish someone would just be themselves and tell the truth and not be this fake caricature. That's what's wrong with politics. Everyone's pretending to be something they're not. And then when you get a guy being himself, it's like, well, I don't like that. That upsets me. So, I mean, I don't know what the correct answer is. I would have rather Obama been himself. The same with Hillary Clinton. Like, if I was running Hillary Clinton, and we've talked about this, right? You remember, when was Al Gore the best?
Right.
When he,
right after he lost the election and gave his concessions.
right, because he seemed like a regular, normal person who
Right.
was honest. It's the same with Hillary Clinton. Like, Hillary Clinton's going to pretend she has hot sauce in her purse, and she's going to pretend that she shops at Walmart.
I'm not sure that Hillary Clinton's ever seemed real in any situation.
Well, I know, but she should have played that up. You're right. I'm not a regular person. You know,
Right.
I've been involved in politics my entire life, but here's why that's preferential to be president. Now, I wouldn't have agreed with her necessarily, but that's way more honest.
And they only did that really at the convention, where they did that a little bit. And I was like, oh yeah, they're playing up that I was the Secretary of State, I was First Lady, I know all these people, we know how to get it done and all this.
Right. So so my feelings on Trump is, I don't understand, like, people on the left, well, he's so divisive. Well, so was Obama. You know, it literally, this is something I heard Gavin McInnes, who no one likes because apparently he was the founder of the Proud Boys. Whatever, I still think he's funny and I like him. Anyways,
What?
The Proud Boys, that's this group that fights Antifa all the time that some people say is a hate group or whatever. Whatever, it's stupid. Anyways, he says when you're talking about like Tommy Robinson or Trump, that a lot of it has to do with class. Not classes in money, but classes in there's a certain way to behave and to be someone who has class. And those people that are in that grouping don't want someone who's brash, right? And so that's what a lot of this is. They have contempt for the working class people that talk like Donald Trump does. So that's where their outrage, a lot of it comes from. But that's just someone being themselves and how they act, right? That would be like me saying, well, I'm outraged at how, inner city blacks talk. I'm not outraged at all. That's their culture. That's fine, right? I'm not going to dislike them just because the way they talk. Like, but that's how it's done with Trump. Like, and I get it. There are foibles. Now, there are things beyond the way he talks, right? Like, maybe you don't like the attacks he's making, regardless if he says them in a classy nature or not. Or maybe you don't like the things he's been accused of in his personal life. Like, maybe you're a very religious person and you think that he's engaged in infidelity. That's fine. I get all of that. But I just don't get where this comes from. That how is it he responsible for this division? I don't get it.
He's played into it, right? I mean, he has. Right?
Well, but he's fought back, and that's so. Basically, here's what it is: the entire media class, or at least 95% of it, and the political class, even Republicans like Jeff Flake, John McCain, Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan, all these never-Trump Republicans, they basically went after this guy with both barrels. They lie about him every day. They leaked about the Obama administration, leaked about him, unmasked people. They spied on him. All this stuff that's, to our knowledge, unprecedented in U.S. history, they attacked him with. And because he fought back, that somehow makes him the divider. Not the people that started that. Not the people that said the people that vote for Trump are racist or they're deplorable. No, it was when Trump started to fight back that's what caused the division. I mean, I'm sorry. You could say, well, he participated in that, but what's the alternative? I don't know what I would have expected Trump to do differently other than specific things like attacking Rosie O'Donnell and stuff like that's stupid. And sometimes he shoots himself in the foot. But in general, I'm glad that Trump fought back. Because if he wouldn't have, he would have been buried. And he should fight back even more. I think he surrounded himself with crappy people like A.G. Barr. Barr should have prosecuted Comey. Barr should have prosecuted McCabe. But I don't know. That's my feeling anyways.
I'd put Giuliani in the list of crappy people that he surrounded himself with. Because every time my justification there is every time I watch Giuliani, it seems like he doesn't know what he's talking about, and when he does know what he's talking about, all of a sudden he changes his mind like 30 seconds later.
I agree with that. I think Giuliani, I think that Trump's lucky, as is Giuliani, that they happen to be on the right side of the issue. But I don't think Giuliani's the best spokesman. But here's the defense I'll give of Trump for Giuliani. Who the hell can Trump trust? The leak, someone of the dozen or so people that listen to this call leaked the contents of that and gossiped about it to whoever this quote-unquote whistleblower is. They leaked the conversation. Everything he does is under scrutiny. Every single turn he makes, there are people in his own administration that are trying to stymie him. There's been articles written about it from anonymous people in his administration of the New York Times, how they're trying to take Trump down from the inside. So who are you going to trust to do something? This guy that you've known for years and years because you were in New York while Giuliani was there. That's one person he trusts. Maybe Giuliani's not the best person in that he says bumbling things or whatever, but I'd rather have someone who might not be the best that I could trust than,
Yeah. I don't know. I would be skeptical that I could trust him. But even if you could think that you could trust him, it's still stupid to put him on TV.
Maybe. But they should put me on TV. I could defend Trump better than then
At
these
least you
people.
wouldn't change your position 30 seconds after you started talking.
What's that?
I
Yeah,
said
right.
you change your position 30 seconds after you started
Right.
talking.
Well, and this is now I know you're a Democrat, right? But for those listening, you're a Democrat in the same sense that I'm a Republican. We would cheer for the other side to still do great for the country, right? Like you're not cheering for Trump to fail. You would hope the same if Hillary would have won. I hated Hillary, but I would have been like, I hope she proves me wrong, right? Like that's how I would have felt. Because my goal is for the country to do great and for people.
Yeah, when he won, I was optimistic that there would be some things that he would be able to help out on.
Well, I mean, surely you think there's some things he's done well.
Yeah, to some degree.
You know,
there are things I wish he would focus on them more instead of just kind of like springing up and doing things sometimes.
Well,
like, I think the stuff to some degree. I think the biggest good thing that he's done is kind of woken us up to the China stuff, the economic stuff that's been going on with them. But I also don't think he concentrates on it well enough, and I think he just kind of like throws stuff at it sometimes and doesn't necessarily think through all the actions that he's taking. I'm not saying we shouldn't be taking actions.
Right.
I'm not saying specifically any of them on their own are bad. I'm just saying, I don't like the way he seems to fly by the seat of his pants sometimes.
Yes, I agree with that. You know, and he's not a perfect person. And I do think that's where I disagree with a lot of Trump supporters. There's a lot of Trump supporters that think that he's this cold, calculated person that before he sends every tweet sitting around with like his close associates like, okay, we're going to put this tweet out and it'll lead to this reaction, which leads to me reacting in this way. That's not what's going on. Right?
I think he's overreactionary, and
that's exactly right. He's shooting from the hip. That's it. Like, bam, he says something. And it works out for him because I think oftentimes he's on the right side of the issue. And more than that, the Democrats are so bad that they end up shooting themselves in the foot in the response to Trump. And so it works out for him. But what you're saying is he should focus more on, what he's trying to do policy-wise. I mean, that's exactly what he did yesterday, and that's going to be what the Republicans start to do. Their narrative is going to be the Democrats have had the House for 2 years. The only thing they've managed to accomplish is investigation after investigation into Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Trump's been trying to do X, Y, and Z. I mean, that's going to be the 2020 election.
Okay, yeah. But they haven't really pivoted. What did he say yesterday as far as what policy things they were going to focus on?
Oh, he said that he was working with China, that he's, that he's working on the Iran situation, that he's doing stuff for veterans, that they're working on, the economy's doing really good. I mean, regardless if you like the positions or not, or you think he's done a good job, that's going to be the narrative. Like, at least we're trying to do stuff.
That's what I would think he needs to do, is to start doing things like that there would be broad support for.
Well, but he has, and the media just doesn't. For example, the criminal justice reform. I mean, that's something Democrats have been looking for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Trump passes it because he has a couple rappers show up. I mean, that's the irony of what the Democrats are doing. Trump, he's not a ridiculous partisan. He's not a conservative ideologue. He was willing to reach across the aisle. You can even see it on the gun debate. I disagree with Trump, or like the vaping stuff. But he's willing to reach across the aisle to what the other side wants. The problem is the Democrats have taken the position he's Hitler from day one, and so you can't work with him. And so it leads to these insane positions where, like, Trump comes out and it's like, we're pushing for LGBT rights. We're no longer going to do business with countries that criminalize LGBT behavior. And the Democrats' position is, yeah, right. Trump's just doing this for publicity. How hard would it be to say, okay, good. Now that you're listening to us about that, how about listen to us about this, right? But they won't do that. They're just like, well, like you said, to Klobuchar's credit, she said a couple things.
Is that really, did he really say that about
that was a couple months ago. Yeah, or like 6-7 months ago.
We have, relations with Saudi Arabia.
I know, and nothing's came about of it as far as I know. But that was the statement that he gave, and that was going to be the official policy position. And the Democrats' response was, "Oh, this is just no. It's not good if Trump's doing." Or the same with criminal justice reform. Did you see any Democrats like, "Wow, that's amazing. Obama couldn't get that accomplished, and Trump did it"? No, they just pretended it was bad because Trump was doing it. I mean, it's insane. I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, for me, the whole thing's just. It's crazy. I just can't believe the corruption. Like, it's so easy to get bogged down in the minutia of this specific story about, like, well, should Giuliani be acting or what? Like, all that's important is the Democrats voted for impeachment before they even read the transcript, knowing full well the transcript was coming out. We know that the person wasn't even a whistleblower.
They haven't.
Yeah, I mean, they're a secondhand reporter who's a CIA agent. Like, what? When all of a sudden are the Democrats the party of the CIA? I just don't get it, and I don't understand how people aren't outraged. The media, to me, it's just a sign that the media is so powerful, and the media and academia and the entertainment industry in Silicon Valley, that something so blatant, it's so corrupt can occur, and everyone's just like, well, the media's for it, so, it must not be a big deal. I mean, it blows my mind.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so specifically, my contention is that I feel like, granted, we know why the Democrats are doing what they're doing and pushing for impeachment because that's their goal anyways. But I also think that there's a separate goal here of covering up Democratic corruption, because I think that probably the statements you heard, where Hillary said after she lost the election, like, we're in a lot of trouble, I think is true. I think a lot of the vitriol going after Trump is they so expected to win the 2016 election that they didn't cover their tracks well enough with a lot of really shady crap that was going on. And so they feel like the Democrats are smarter than the Republicans. See, the Republicans always just play defense. You're a racist. No, we're not. Instead of being like, no, you're the racist, right? The Republicans are always on the defense. And so the Democrats, smartly, I think, have been on the offense the entire time. So now we're almost entirely through Trump's first term. And what have we gotten? The IG report's still going, but anytime we see corruption, it's always, Comey's referred to for criminal prosecution. They're on the offense so much that we barely talk about that. And so I think that this is another example of that. I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that?
I don't know. We've talked a lot about the impeachment stuff at this point. The only thing that I can think of why I might be wrong, and why the impeachment is bad for the Democrats, I guess, or because I think it's bad for them to win next year.
Right.
Is that supposedly the reports are that Trump really doesn't want this to happen. So maybe he thinks that there is something. No, I'm not saying that he thinks there's something necessarily to it, but he thinks maybe it'll hurt him as far as winning the election.
Oh, that could be. But this is like when, you remember the reports that it was said in the Mueller report when Trump found out that there was a special prosecutor, he said, I'm effed, right?
Yeah.
And everyone said, that proves he's guilty. But if you read the full context, he says, I've heard that these totally stymie administrations, I'm effed. In other words, his agenda's effed. Because now he has to spend the entire time fighting for this. And so he could just feel like that as well. Like, look, I'd like to govern, but I can't. Maybe. Because I just constantly have to defend myself from these accusations. I will say this. I think that people, for some reason, there seems to be this overwhelming consensus that if you go for impeachment and then regardless if you lose the impeachment or if you win it, but then the Senate decides not to remove from office, that's a big loss. I don't know that that's true. I mean, what? Because that's what happened with Bill Clinton, but that's not necessarily a bulk enough ground of evidence to show that it would be the same way again, right?
Not necessarily, but it could be bad too, right? It depends on how it plays out.
Well, right, it could be bad, but
that's my concern, is that I think it's a high risk proposition for the Democrats.
Right, and
they might be able to get from their opinion a big reward, right? But it's really high risk, and at the moment, you might disagree with me on this, but I would have thought prior to this, like a week ago, I would have thought that they had the better chance of winning next year than Trump.
I don't know. I know
a better chance. I would just say a better chance.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm confident in my prediction that Elizabeth Warren will be the nominee. I have no clue how the 2020 election will go. I'm not confident to make a prediction one way or the other. And I'm infuriated as someone who's going to Republican meetings and working within the Republican Party. The districts, like in District 12 and even here in District 15 where I'm at in Pennsylvania, heavily Trump Republican areas, right? It's rural Pennsylvania. These people are so confident that Trump's going to crush the Democrats. it's very disturbing. It to me,
Yeah.
it's very similar to how confident Hillary fans were that she was
Right.
going to win. So I don't know. I tell them, like, I think you're mistakenly confident, but I don't know. Again, I'm just not one that's good at predicting that type of thing. I would have been almost 100% certain that there was no chance that Trump was going to win in 2016. But that's because I'm so cynical, I just assumed corruption would take over and they wouldn't leave Trump win.
So to be honest with you, I would, if in a 50-50 world, I would have thought he wasn't going to win.
Right.
But I did think that there was a shot of him winning. And that is why I voted for Hillary instead of like Gary Johnson or something like that. Because I wasn't a huge Hillary supporter or anything like that. And I realize I say I'm a Democrat, but I am kind of like middle.
Right.
And I don't know, Hillary has her issues as well. And as I've clearly said, my arguments earlier today about having problems with people mishandling classified information, she of course had her whole own host of concerns when it came to that kind of stuff as well, which I would have not been a fan of.
Which again, I come back to the Democrat stance is Trump making a conversation more secure on a more secure server is corrupt, but Hillary putting things on her private unsecure server and then deleting them was not corrupt. I know you don't feel that way, but
right. I think the whole moving it to a more secure server is not going to be an issue.
Right. They're trying to make it one, but it's not going to go anywhere. That's just stupid.
They're throwing the people on Twitter are throwing arguments against a wall to see if anything sticks.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's ridiculous. So one of the things, like, before we go, I think this might be worth talking about because it's not about the impeachment stuff specifically. And I think that...
Is it Greta?
What's that?
You said it's a Greta.
No, we can talk about that if you want, but just real quick, because for those people that don't know, me and you were debate partners. We both did debate. I'm incredibly frustrated on, it doesn't matter Republican or Democrat, this tactic of people just relying on someone else to make their argument for them. So let's say you would give, let's say you give a 10-minute speech right here, right now, with tons of evidence that's like, hey, here's why I think that, what Trump did broke the law, or what Biden did broke the law. It doesn't matter who, you just give, and I say, no, here's an article.
Right.
Like, that infuriates me to no end. When did we become so reliant on kind of these appeals to authority that we as individuals can't make our own arguments? It frustrates me to no end.
Although, in fairness, our arguments in debate were based on people's articles.
Well, yeah, but you had
to have more than one source and things like that, too.
And when you got to the rebuttals, you weren't reading new evidence. You were articulating what was in that evidence. I mean, it like Twitter or these other websites I'm on, it's like, it just frustrates me to no end. I could be like, here's 7 articles, and I go through them. I'll put a 40-minute video out. I'll go through and, like, whatever, I'm on Twitter. I do, like, a 12-thread thing, and someone will just be like, nah, what about this Washington Post article? Proves you're wrong. And I'm like, dude, the articles I'm citing are after the Washington Post article was written, specifically saying why that article was wrong. And it doesn't matter that people are just like, nah, I have an article. And I think that that's indicative of a lot of the division we have, is that if we're both just going, if you're just going to put your champion up there, well, I'm going to defend Sean Hannity and you're going to defend Rachel Maddow. Like, what chance do we ever have of having a real conversation,
To be fair, although this isn't going to help, so I would say the person with the article is still better than 90% of Twitter. That's their opinion.
Right, that's
but true. Your article should actually be applicable and have some sort of real truth to it.
But I don't have a problem with citing the article, but if you're going to cite the article, be like, look, it says here that you're wrong because of X. But you just copy and paste, you're like, there it is. It's like, okay, at least point to me where you're saying refutes my position, because you know that what ends up happening, no one's even reading your position. So I did this video last night.
Yeah, I know. Which they take the headline.
I did this video last night and I put it up on Twitter about going through this new Solomon article and specifically going through the documents that he released of Biden's son's company's lawyers. So I did that video. And the response to it that I got from people on Twitter that disagreed with me was just like, yeah, that's a nothing burger. It's like, why? Why isn't this relevant? And it becomes incredibly frustrating. And I will say, look, I'm a hypocrite, don't get me wrong. And I'm also partisan. Like, I'm a Trump supporter and I'm a conservative. But I'm at least willing to hear argument. Like, you know what I mean? You were like,
Right.
well, I had a problem with this Giuliani. I wasn't just like, no, no, no. Like, you're at least willing to hear the other side. It's incredibly frustrating to me that I think more and more people on all sides, they're just unwilling to hear out the other side.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the problem with the country, right? And it's a problem with the way Twitter and Facebook and all of those things have become, where it's just little sound bites or little 144 characters or 288, whatever it is now.
Yeah.
And you don't really have any time to have any nuance in your arguments or anything like that. It's all just let me spout my opinion real quick without having to actually do any work.
But yeah, if you want to talk about Greta real quick, what do you think about that?
So I disagreed with your video somewhat on that. Specifically, the exception that I took with your video was I hate people saying that she has handlers.
Oh,
I don't like that.
When did I say that? I believe that, but I don't remember saying that.
You did use the phrase handlers. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? I still think that her opinions are valid. She's 16 years old, right? She's a girl, right? 16-year-old, not that she's a girl specifically, but 16-year-old girls tend to be very opinionated. And I think I don't like the whole rhetoric that it's because her parents or somebody else are making her go through all of this.
I thought that it seemed
without any real evidence of that.
I can understand that position, and I will say,
okay,
go ahead.
I still think it's okay that if you disagree with her, or you think that she has said something incorrect, to be able to criticize what she has said. I 100% fully agree that that's okay, because she has specifically opened herself up to criticism by going to the UN and stating her opinion publicly and trying to be what is in this instance a political figure.
Right.
So I don't care if she's underage or anything with that. I think that's fair game.
Right, and I'll clarify. I do think she believes what she's saying.
Yeah.
I think, though, and she is 16, right? I get that. But I think my impression had to do more with she appears uncomfortable. And it sometimes, to me, looking at her, it appears as if she believes what she's saying, but she's kind of being put out there as this symbol that maybe, I don't know, but maybe she wouldn't be there if her parents didn't encourage it, or the people, that are around her that are financing her didn't encourage it. But it's irrelevant. Like, I understand your criticism of that.
There were other things that, like, I didn't like the criticism. Like Laura Ingraham said she was a member of the Children of the Corn or something like that.
Yeah.
People that said she was evil and things like that. I just didn't. I don't think that's.
Yeah, I don't think that I wouldn't go that direction either, and I didn't. Michael Knowles said that she had a mental illness. Technically, Asperger's isn't really qualified as a mental illness. It's a form of autism. So it's
but
more
in our
like,
country, when you say somebody's mentally ill, generally you're saying it because they like murdered somebody or something like that. So
yeah, or you're implying that they don't have their mental faculties, therefore it diminishes their argument, right? Like,
right.
I mean, I don't think it's worthy of, like, Fox said we'll never have Michael Knowles back. I didn't think it was that bad, but ultimately, like, my feelings on it were this: one, I have problems factually with what she's saying. Second, it is clear that she's being put up by these handlers as a symbol because, and I just read an article today from a leftist that was saying this, the right doesn't know how to deal with this because it's hard for them to attack a child. It is clear that that's the purpose of this because she's not saying things in a more articulate way. Who she is the message, right?
So, but then the criticism is not so much what the way that it's been directed has not been still correct, right? The criticism then is, and this is something that you're normally good with, the media, right? The media should not be the ones propping her up the way that they are.
Well,
right?
but it's the media and the Democrat. It's those that believe in the climate change agenda, and I think that's what I was trying to say. That's what's on. Go ahead.
To be fair to the media, again with the clicks thing, this was on Monday, I think, or maybe it was Tuesday morning, when I was on the BBC website. Her visit to the UN was the #1 story on BBC. And this is the same time when the Supreme Court of the UK had been like, what Boris Johnson did was illegal, which was like a huge overturn of precedent and things like that in the UK. And for that to have been the #1 article over that in BBC is maybe.
Well, just to go back, but just to go back to that, would you agree that Trump's been the biggest moneymaker for the media?
Probably.
Okay, so
at least in the last few years, for sure.
Okay, so then even though they're going heavily after Trump, wouldn't they at the very end kind of do their best to make sure Trump wins so they could continue to collect this revenue?
I don't know. What I would say is they might think that they need the money to going after him is how they're making the money, right? Just having him exist, there's people aren't that interested. They have to have like offense against him to have people.
Yeah, but you would want that offense to be as weak as possible. You want the appearance you're going after him, but secretly you're cheering for him to win.
Well, from your perspective, they don't have good offense.
Yeah, but that's clearly not their perspective.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's just but yeah, I understand what you're saying about the media with clicks with Greta. I get that, and it is a big story. But it could. The question is, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, when we're talking about the media? For example, I'm sure that there are young girls out there that are saying, I had a friend who was sexually assaulted by an illegal immigrant. This is all the Democrats' fault. You don't think that would drive big clicks? Of course it would, because it's controversial.
But stuff like that probably does on Fox News, though, right?
I haven't seen it, and I mean, why wouldn't the Democrat media? Because Fox is putting Greta out there, and again, I think that we mistakenly assume Fox is like totally pro Trump or pro right wing, because I think they're becoming more and more centrist. I don't say that in a good way, though. And I don't mean that they should be far right wing is a good thing either.
I only go to them because at least of the huge old school mainstream ones, they are the most conservative. Of
right.
The ones mainstream and
yes, and you always want to get things from different perspectives. But
with the internet, there are certainly other sites that are more.
And let me say something else that, for the sake of accuracy, it is sometimes unfair to label an entire network crappy. You know what I mean? So, for example, if I'm like, CBS sucks, they could have some good people at CBS. Like, so it becomes difficult. Right. So, like, when you're talking about Fox in general, it's like, well, if you take Tucker Carlson versus Shep Smith and they're having this feud, like, they couldn't be more ideologically different. It is clear Shep Smith hates Trump more than almost anyone in the media. And it's clear that Tucker, not that he's a big Trump supporter because he'll go after Trump, but it's clear that he defends Trump a lot. So, I mean, to just say Fox's position is X isn't necessarily always true. And I do like Tucker, and there's some other people. I don't like Hannity. I just remember Hannity from the Bush days. And Hannity's one of those guys that's like, when it's his guy, he does no wrong. And when it's the other guy, he does no right. Like we were talking about earlier. So that's what frustrates me. But Hannity has the best guest. Like, Hannity has John Solomon on. He'll have Dan Bongino on. Like, I think those are my favorite guests. So I do enjoy that. And I think Greg Gutfeld's funny. And I agree with his positions most of the time. But other than that, I don't really watch Fox. And even with those shows, I rarely watch it. I get my news more online. But anyways, to go back to the Greta thing, what I was saying with the chicken or the egg is it because the media pushes them up, which then drives people's interest and controversy, so then they click? Or is it because she on her own would have driven that? So I think it's a mutual arrangement.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think but that's why I think the criticism would be more towards the media or the Democrats specifically propping her up, and not so much her.
Well, no, and I don't think I attacked her that much, and I don't even care that her...
I didn't say you attacked her that much.
Right. Even the idea of criticizing her family, I think there is a criticism of her family to be made that, it's... I don't know. It just seems a bit much. That's all I'm saying. Like, you're putting your kid out there, that there's... I mean, I don't know. Whatever. I don't really care. To me, it's... If it was my kid and they wanted to do it on their own, I would be like, I'll fly around with you, I'll ride in the yacht with you, but, I'm just... it's clear they're wearing their anti-fascist shirts together and stuff. But I don't know. It's not a big point to me, and I don't think it was my focus. But it's clear that she's being used as a symbol. It's not her message, it's who she is that is the story. Right. And that, to me, is just ridiculous. And by the way, it's ridiculous. I make this argument against Republicans, too. Like, when you bring out the Gold Star families, I don't mind doing that necessarily, but to me, that's an argument from emotion and not an argument from fact. Because no matter what position you're on, like, take any position on the immigration debate, you could bring out a dreamer that's a really awesome person and tugs at your heartstring, but you could also bring out someone whose family member was killed by an illegal immigrant. But that's not, you know what I mean? So what is our politics to be then? Who could bring out the more aggrieved people or the more sympathetic people?
Right.
Now I don't mind talking about the numbers in whole. If you say, look, this many people were killed by illegal immigrants, or if you say this many dreamers are really, positively affecting our country. But when you just boil it down to one person, it's clear that that's just a symbol. And I understand that's powerful to people, but I try to not you know,
Yeah.
yeah, that's just my feelings on it. But it's clear, and I mean, the footage is just coming out. I saw last night that in 1992 there was like a 13-year-old girl that almost gave the exact same speech as Greta in front of the UN. It was about the ozone layer and how, as a kid, she was afraid every day. And I do think that the bigger story is that we are brainwashing our kids with this death cult, where there are kids that are having severe anxiety problems, younger than 16 even, because they're being told every day, hey, we're all dead in 12 years. Like, that seems a bit extreme, especially when the science doesn't come anywhere close to saying that. At least the agreed upon, the consensus, you know. So, I mean, I just think it's a very dangerous thing. And for me, the entire climate change debate, anyways, like, we can get into the specifics of it, but I mean, it seems to me that this is exactly what the Al-Qaeda boogeyman was used for. It wasn't that Al-Qaeda wasn't a threat, it was, but it was used and blown up to take away our Fourth Amendment rights, to put the Patriot Act in. I feel like that's what's helping with climate change. Sure, the climate's changing, and sure, we need to discuss it and try to do things to adjust with that, but it's being blown out of proportion to justify a naked power grab and taking away people's rights.
To the one thing, and I know that you would argue that to some degree, she would probably say that she wants some of that kind of stuff to happen, right? This is just Greta again. But there was something that she said in one of her speeches, I think it was to Congress, where she kind of implied, if you read it in one way, that tying everything to like basically doing like a Green New Deal or something was ridiculous, and you just need to act on the parts that were specific to climate change or whatever, right?
Yes, yeah,
Well, yeah.
I agree with that. But here's
like I said the last time I was on a video with you. I do think that there's stuff that we need to take action on and things like that. I don't think we're going to be dead by 2030.
I mean,
but
here's my take on that. Like, I will agree that there's a consensus the climate is changing. I'll even agree that there's a consensus that humans have something to do with it. But that's the end of the consensus. Like, there's all sorts of questions like, how bad will things get? How long will it take them to get that bad? How much can we change in our behavior affect that situation? You know, all sorts of things like that.
We have some idea of how much our behavior changes can affect how the climate's changing.
Right. So, like, you remember in debate, you would have these, people would be like, you know, it's going to be, if we enact your plan, there'll be, if we don't do our plan, there's a nuke war. Oh, really? How soon's the nuke war? Like, tomorrow. It's going to happen tomorrow. It's like, okay, well, there's no way your plan can solve that in time. That's one of the problems we see. The people that are hyperbolic that are like, well, we only have 10 years. It's like, well, if that's the case, your plan doesn't do squat with China and India, which are by far bigger polluters than us. So we're all dead anyways. You know, so, I mean, it's clear that it's being blown out of proportion. And then, you know, it doesn't take into effect, people don't take into effect that the free markets, or whatever you want to call it, the status quo, is constantly adjusting. Our emission levels 5 years from now aren't going to be the same as our emission levels today if the government doesn't act. They're constantly adjusting. And so, for example, we're actually meeting our obligations under the Paris Climate Accord, even though we rejected it.
Which is actually why she didn't call us specifically out at the UN.
Yeah, but she didn't call China and India out. She called France and the United States. And, you know, I mean, it's nonsense. But, you know, I don't mind the serious conversation, but I find that many of the people are, one, directly hypocritical. Like you saw, you know, the Democrats had these climate change rallies or whatever, and then they're serving up, how many pounds of steaks? Well, they're telling you that meat is bad and hurtful to the environment. And then when they leave... What's that?
I said they're already slaughtered at that point. You might as well eat.
Yeah, but I mean... But then it was just like in debate, right? You remember we'd have these debates, and people would be like, oh, you know... Anthropocentrism. Your plan doesn't take animals into account. Then you would leave the debate and you'd see them throwing rocks at a squirrel or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, no. Like, I'm not going to put up with this. Like, you're clearly disingenuous. Or, you know, oh, we need to help minority peoples and things like that. And you'd be at some hotel. And then they just leave the trash lay around. And people like me and you are there trying to pick up the trash, working with, a bunch of minority people that barely speak English at this hotel. You know what I mean? It's like,
or they'd say tech bad and be working on their laptops at the time.
Yes, right, exactly, stuff like that. And so you have these climate change protests, and then they leave a ton of trash laying around. It's just you just shake your head. You're like, it's clear that they don't believe this crap, or they feel that like the idea of personal responsibility is not necessary, and it's the exact opposite. And then what ends up happening is, so I'll talk to people like, you know, friends of me and yours that are more left wing than us, and that are really concerned about this situation. But there are ways to meet in the middle. Like, for example, one of the biggest stains on America to this day, to me, is the Flint water crisis, right? How can that be? Like, I don't care.
Did you watch the Frontline documentary on that like a couple of weeks ago?
I did not. I haven't seen it yet.
It's really good. You can find it online, I think. If anybody else is interested, it's really good, and it really is damning of basically everyone.
That's right. It's not a right or a left wing thing, right?
Yeah.
Like it's everyone who's involved is. It's unthinkable to me. That situation should be resolved today. We should have the best people involved in our government there right now saying, we are digging up these pipes. Everything will be completed by the end of the week, period. We don't care, right?
They connected it to like 100 deaths. I forget what the disease was now off the top of my head. Was it Legionnaire's disease or something like that?
Yeah.
And it was like, and that's something that normally that's not what is being reported. What's being reported is the water is brown and icky, right?
Right.
Which is bad, sure. But like, these actions that people took specifically caused, and then they also covered it up that they were causing these deaths.
Right.
That everybody was getting impacted by this.
So we have things like that, and then like things like overfishing or things like river pollution. Like there are tangible things that we could see, but we don't focus on that. We focus on this giant boogeyman, and then it's like this is the problem, Jordan Peterson, someone I follow a lot, and he gets crap because he says, before you're trying to change the world, clean your room. And people are like, oh, that's so stupid. But the point of it is, you got to start small. You can't just be like, and so many people have a tendency to be like, the world's going to die, and we need radical change to stop the world from dying. Meanwhile, you're overlooking people dying because something we could really change with real policy, no one's even focused on. And it blows my mind the amount of stuff that occurs like that. So that's what I find frustrating. Yeah.
When you're talking to our mutual friends and it's about climate change or something like that, what I would say is you should ask them if they have electric choice where they live, like we do in Pennsylvania. Right. And in Pennsylvania, you can say, "Hey, I only want renewable energy to come to my house."
Right.
Which it doesn't work exactly like that, but they have to buy that many credits.
Yes.
Of renewable energy to do it. So like I have that for wind power, and I suspect a lot of our friends don't do that at all.
Right. Well, and that's the problem. There's a hypocrisy in general. And then I attach that to kind of this moral superiority where I don't mind, like your positions are your positions, and I'd like to argue factually about it. But once you start getting into well, I'm more moral than you because of my position, then I have a problem because, like, for example, like inner cities, I care about the inner city. I really do. I say all the time that I feel that if I was born in a poor inner city black community, there's no chance I would have made it out. I'm a scumbag. I'm lazy. I would have just said I'm a victim. I'd have probably joined a gang. I know that. So the people that actually live in those conditions and make it out, I think are some of the greatest Americans we have. The amount of challenge that they had to go through. And I'm not just talking about scientists that come out of that community. Like if you got any sort of job and you're doing your best to make your life better, that's amazing. If you're someone like you're in the NBA or the NFL, guess what? You still had to bust your butt despite your natural talent. To me, that stuff's all amazing. I really think it is. But because I'm against the war on poverty policies, then all of a sudden I don't care about the inner city. And that's garbage. It's the same with this morality argument with climate change. It's like the only way you get to make the morality argument is if you, based on personal choices you are making, are more moral than me. You're not more moral because you say, I want to take Group A's money and give it to Group B. Right. You're more moral if you are willfully giving your own money to Group B. But forcing me to give to Group B doesn't make you moral. Now, that doesn't mean your position couldn't be better for the country or factually good, but don't pretend it makes you more moral. That's all I'm saying. And that's, I think, with the Greta thing, that's my big bone with her. It's just like this David Hogg kid. I didn't mind David Hogg saying the NRA, we should get rid of these guns. What I minded was how he said it. You all effing have blood in your hands. You want the murder of kids. And it's just like Greta. How dare you? It's like, you know what? Shut your mouth, kid. How about that? How dare you? And she's smart enough to know she's being used as a symbol, because her defenders will be quick to say, oh, you can't go after a kid like that. Oh, she's moral because she's a kid. Well, you can't have it both ways. If you're going to put your big boy pants on and start accusing other people of being evil, then you're going to get gruff coming back your way. I don't care if you're 16 or not. And that's the part of the outrages. What's that?
End of her speech, she said they weren't evil.
Yeah, but she's saying...
implying that their inaction was making them evil.
She says, the fact that you're not acting looks like you're evil, but I know you're not evil.
Right.
So you'll do the right thing. right?
Continuing to be in action is evil, is what she's saying.
Right. Well, I mean, it's quite clear. I mean, how dare you do this to me? You took away my youth. This is garbage. These are making personal attacks saying you specifically. That's ridiculous. It would be as ridiculous as if someone stands up and says, like, it would be evil for, the Democrats to not insert whatever policy the Republicans. I mean, it's just.
I mean, I did think that part of her speech was a little.
It's inflammatory and ridiculous, and it's clearly designed where there's this idea. I mean, and I'm sorry, this is going to make me sound like a sexist or something, but it's like, have you ever been to the bar and you see some girl get in a guy's face and she's basically pushing him and shoving him or like slapping him and screaming in his face because she knows that our societal conventions say that guy can't do anything physical back. You see this all the time. That's the way it is. Like when you're a kid, it's like you can accuse people. You're a scumbag. You can swear at them like David Hogg did. You have blood in your hands. You want the murder of children. And then when they respond back to you and they're like, yeah, you suck, buddy. People are like, oh, you can't say that to a kid. So you can't have it both ways. My feelings and that's why if it came across in my video of her that I was saying like, that because she's a kid, we can't take her opinion serious. That's not what my intention was. I actually feel the exact opposite way. I'm going to treat her like an adult. And I even said that specifically on Twitter as far as Asperger's goes. Because in my job, I deal with people that have autism and things like that. To me, and this is just anecdotal, but I think that you would agree with this, most people with conditions like that just want to be treated as normally as possible,
I would imagine.
Yeah, and so
that's what everybody wants in most of their life.
Yeah, right. So I feel that you're doing them a disservice to be like, well, I would say something about what you're saying, but you have Asperger's, so I'm not going to say it. Like, no, I'm just going to say it, I don't care if you have Asperger's or if you're young. If you're going to accuse people that disagree with you of leading to the death of people and saying that inaction would be evil, I'm going to respond. It's that simple. And you see this actually, there's kind of...
Like I said, I think that's a fair criticism if you think what she said was incorrect.
Right. But did you see, gosh, I don't know enough about this story. I shouldn't even be talking about it. But there was a PM in the UK named Joanna Cox, I believe was her name. And she was killed by a Brexiter years ago. And these women stood up in Parliament. This woman stood up in Parliament like yesterday and was like, Boris Johnson and these Brexiters and like Joanna Cox died. And then Boris Johnson responded, and started talking about this lady. And the big media story became, how dare Boris Johnson bring up that woman? And it's like, but he didn't. Like, and when you get browbeat over, there are certain things, whether it be someone who's dead or, the conservatives can do it in the same way with like military members, right? It's like if you're a veteran, you could say something and that could be outrageous, but people are like, well, they're a veteran. You can't say anything back to them. And I don't buy that crap. I feel that like my job in being someone who's not prejudicial is to treat everyone as evenly as possible. So I don't know. That's what frustrates me about this Greta situation where I don't think that, the irony is, supposedly it's the people in my position that are the anti-science people. Why weren't there scientists at the UN? Why instead are we bringing actors and children? Like, bring the scientist up, right? Well, because you could disagree with the scientist.
They may have been there before and they just didn't get the press coverage.
Maybe, but isn't that outrageous? I mean...
Yeah, but that's the media.
Right.
That's media's fault again, not hers.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know. I just thought that story was... But I didn't talk much about it because for me it's just like, whatever. Like, if you want to have a real climate change debate, I mean, I think that climate change is a huge deal, but for the opposite reason. I think it's a huge deal because of the propaganda that comes with it. That if you had to write a script, if you were, let's just assume you were a corrupt oligarch who wanted to get a naked power grab, you couldn't write a better script than climate change, because it's like being a mechanic to people that don't know anything about cars, right? If I take my car to the mechanic and the mechanic looks at me and's like, oh yeah, man, yeah, your alternator's crap and, this is crap and that's crap. It's going to be $800. I'm just going to give him the $800 because I don't know. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it sounds reasonable to me. That's how I feel climate change is. It's like no one knows. So when everyone's just like, oh, dude, trust us, like, it's catastrophic. So we need to get rid of cars in the next 10 years. And we need to tax meat to the point where people can't afford meat. And, oh, by the way, we need to also have reparations. and we need to make sure we have racial justice within climate. It's like, wait, what? What does any of this have? And so you can just see, it's like, oh,
right.
dude.
That doesn't mean there's not real things that could be done that aren't ridiculous like that, right? Like,
but that's just it. Like, so we have to be honest.
More nuclear and renewable energy and less on oil and especially natural gas.
Right. Right. But by the way, many of the Green New Deal people don't like nuclear.
I know that.
I mean, so it's clear that it's not about climate change, and we need to be honest about the problem, because to me it's the same as being like, oh man, Al-Qaeda's going to get you, they're terrible people. Me and you would agree Al-Qaeda's terrible people, right? Climate change is just like that, except with the advent of social media and the internet, it's hard to paint another country as the boogeyman as much. You see it with Russia. Like, every time they poll, in the middle of the Mueller investigation and everything, anytime they did a poll and they would ask, even Democrats, like, you're killing everything. And they leave out, and I'm willing to hear it, but the fact that, if I'm one thing, it's this. I think I'm a good judge of when someone's BSing me. And you could tell when it's like, okay, you're talking about climate change, let's hear it. And it's like, yeah, that's why we have to give reparations. It's like, yeah, okay. This is crap. Like, I don't trust you. I just don't. I'm sorry. And, with
the climate justice that you're referring to, is that what they called it?
What's that?
Was that one of the Democratic debates where they're like, we need climate justice? And I'm like,
yeah. Well, the Green New Deal said it. And I mean,
oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's insanity, right? Like, we need to guarantee everyone an income, even if they don't want to work. That's what the first Green New Deal said. What does that have to do with climate change again? And stuff like that. And so, it's a simple trick. I could be like, hey, Tom, like, for real, you ought to have flood insurance. And you're like, well, okay. And I could maybe you ought to have flood insurance. But also, you need to give me a ton of other money as well. It's like, oh, okay. And I don't understand why we're supposed to. It's like we can't even have a discussion about this. How many times are the scientific community going to tell us that it's the end of the world because of the climate? Like, since the 60s, it was global cooling, remember? Then it was acid rain. Then it was the ozone layer. Then it was all these places were going to be underwater by 2005. And, like, they're wrong every time. It reminds me of when I went to this Pentecostal church, and every year it was, trust me, the rapture's next week. And then that day comes and they're like, oh, nope, we met next year. It's like, okay, at some point we have to say, stop pulling my leg. You've been wrong 40 times. That doesn't mean you're wrong this time. But when you're advocating for such a huge power grab, you should have to prove it. At least that's how I feel.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I think reasonable actions are appropriate. Because I think it's reasonable to try to reduce carbon emissions anyway.
But go back to your debate years, right? If we know that the status quo is transitioning to that anyways, why risk ruining that by having government intervention?
Because we do government intervention everywhere else. Right?
Yeah, and most of the time it doesn't work out.
I mean, we're doing it with like natural gas and stuff too, right? Like we're promoting natural gas today, right?
Right. And I agree. Things are subsidized, and I don't mind like a government push towards nuclear or even small amounts of. I mean, I'm against subsidies in general.
I mean, did you know that 3 Mile Island closed last week or 2 weeks ago?
I saw that.
So I mean, like, because of the way that they're propping up the natural gas industry, now a nuclear plant has closed.
Right, and that's not good. I agree with that. But like, for example, we had Obama. How did that work out with propping up Solyndra? A bunch of corrupt people got incredibly wealthy and nothing came of it. It's like, and so once you start to get the government involved, there's just, even if you assume it won't be corrupt, there's just bloat and bureaucracy.
I would say the justification, as a Democrat, the justification for getting the government involved is to do research on new technologies and things like that. Not necessarily.
I guess, but I mean, whatever. That's fine. That's not what most of the Democrats are saying. Most of the Democrats have more extreme positions, but I could live with that. I could live with saying we need a slow. But me and you both know this. The key is to have a transition that is stable and slow enough to not drastically affect regular people's lives.
Right.
And that's not
all oil except for with cops and.
You're right. Right. Yeah. I mean, and like someone that me and you know, I won't mention their name. I had a discussion about this, and it went something like this. They said if we don't make a drastic change in 12 years, we're all dead within 100 years. Every human will be dead. And I said, how confident are you of that? They said 90%. I said, okay. I was like, so what do you recommend? Well, you need to get rid of fossil fuels, like immediately. That's the only way to stop this. I said, okay. Like worldwide? Yep. I was like, so take the country of India. We know that the life expectancy of like the average citizen of India is almost doubled in the past 30 years because they finally have access to fossil fuels. So,
Right.
you know, now
They
it's
get those
very
out there.
dirty. A lot of them are actually using generators. And by the way, if you want to look at something that's tragic and hilarious at the same time, look up images of like the power lines in India. It's insane. Like, it's the scariest thing you ever see. It looks like the scene in A Christmas Story where he's got all the extension cords plugged in and he blows the breaker. Like, that's what it looks like. That's our infrastructure.
Fuse is out.
What's that?
I said a fuse is out.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. And so, but even that low tech level of energy has increased their life expectancy and their quality of life exponentially.
Right.
And so, who are we to go and tell them, like, hey, sorry, you guys all got to go back to dying at age 30?
Right.
Like, we know if we banned fossil fuels tomorrow that millions upon millions of people would die. We know that without a fact. And
But
this,
that's why I would argue we should lead and try to find good research in.
yeah, but if we only have 10 years, that's what they're saying.
Right.
Right?
But-
And so I asked this person, a mutual friend of ours, I said, what do you think about that? And their answer was, well, those people are going to die anyways. So it's necessary. And so they don't even realize that their own position is, I'm not 100% positive, but I'm advocating for the death of millions of people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how insane this is. And this isn't a person that's a crappy person. This is a good person. But that's how powerful this propaganda could be. And, you know, it's just like it was that powerful when, you know, in rural Pennsylvania, you remember when the Iraq war was going on, and to this day you can hear people, well, I think we should just bomb that place and make it a parking lot. You know what I mean? And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know what I mean? Like, I get the same vibe from the climate change people. Except the climate change people are convinced that they're smarter than, those stupid rednecks that would say that about a war. They're dumb. But we are the educated class. And it's like, I don't know, man. It just sounds scary to me. It sounds like extremism. I don't mind, like you're saying, having a serious conversation, but being honest and not making it hyperbolic to achieve political ends. And, I think that putting people like Greta out there is the exact opposite of the direction we should be going.
But making everything hyperbolic is the problem with everything in politics.
Well, that's true. Which, by the way, this is something that I said like a year ago, or years ago. You remember like the convention of the Republicans before the 2016 election, and the media was like, oh, Donald Trump and the Republicans, they're dark. They have a dark vision of what America is. And then during the DNC convention's like a week later, and they're like, that was a hopeful message. But if you just were objective and watch both of them, basically both of them are saying, if you elect the other person, the country's going to fall apart. Like, so if one's dark, both are dark. You know what I mean? Mm. But it's funny how when you control the narrative, you could spin it. Like, you don't think Obama's vision of the country or what he was saying was dark? I mean, for God's sakes, Michelle Obama said she was never proud of the country. It was always a terrible place until Obama was elected. And Obama rightfully was calling out all kinds of crazy stuff that was happening under Bush, right? Whether it be the wars or the bailing out bankers. Now, of course, Obama sucked, and he went along with the same stuff. Did you see do you know what the Babylon Bee is?
Yeah.
It's like the Onion. They had an article yesterday I thought was hilarious. It said, Trump learns he's not eligible for Nobel Peace Prize because he hasn't done enough drone strikes. I thought that was a hilarious, like, little slap at Obama there. But, unless you have anything else to talk about, we'll probably wrap this up. I'm probably going to be making videos or on Twitter all day about this crazy impeachment thing. I mean, what I'll close with is, I wish that our politics was what me and you talk about when we're hanging out, right? Where actual policy, or when we were running, right? Actual policies. Hey, here's what, like, some energy exchanges we could do, or how do we get broadband into more rural, like, real stuff. But it's not, because it's just this insane gamesmanship. And I feel like we're at a crossroads where if what we see, what's going on with this impeachment is successful, and if it's not called out by regular people, screw the politicians, screw the media personalities on both sides, but regular people, even if you hate Trump, should be like, this is too much. It's just too much. And if we don't do that, I feel we'll never get back to the, actual policy discussions.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we might. We'll see.
I don't know, man. If Trump gets impeached and removed over this, there will be a civil war. I mean,
but I mean, my thinking is just like history seems to have to always overreact, right? It just I think things repeat, and I think eventually people go back to trying to be more
but
united.
not if he's impeached and removed. I just don't. I don't see it.
In like 2021, I'm just saying that they'll move towards that at some point. Is my
yeah, I agree. I agree with that. That everything's a pendulum, right? And it's swinging to insanity right now. And it might not. It might be this way for a long time. It could be 20 more years. But inevitably, both sides will put people up that are
insanity. They may be right about us being dead in 100 years for just some reason.
Right. You know what I mean? It could be take 20 years, but 20 years from now, you might see that the radical candidates are a Republican and Democrat that's like, you know what, I want to reach out and work with the other side. That might be considered radical and new 20 years from now, and people are like, I can get on board with that. But this story, I just think that there is, even you, who's someone who doesn't like Trump, I think you could see the infactual basis of what they're trying to impeach on. Would that be a fair statement?
Right. I mean, they haven't actually started the inquiry yet, so we have that. But yeah, I mean, they all seem to say that they're going to support it. What is 200?
Right. And I think that it's incredibly dangerous, and I think that it's incredibly corrupt. And so, I would assume most people listening probably feel that way. And I know we didn't talk the specifics of what's going on, like with Biden and things like that, all too much. But that's okay, because you don't want to just talk about the same stuff all the time. And I think there needs to be a reaching out of people on both sides that explain what their feelings are on this impeachment. Just because you hate Trump doesn't mean you should cheer for this impeachment, especially because, like you said, and this is something that like progressives like Jimmy Dore and Aaron Matei have been saying about the Russia investigation and this impeachment effort is, this is actually could potentially be a huge gift to Donald Trump. Like, he's already raised $13 million since Pelosi's statement, which is huge.
Oh, really?
That's what I read this morning. So, and so even if you hate Trump, and that's how I'm always, for those of you, if this is your first time watching my show, I love to talk to people that disagree with me, and you should always be couching kind of your position on, assume that not everyone agrees with you. So why does your position make sense with even people that would generally disagree with you? So I think that we both agree that this is kind of, if they decide to go through with this impeachment, that it's a very bad thing. And even if you hate Trump. So, yeah. That's all I have to say. Do you have anything you want to say?
No, I don't think I have anything else more to add.
Okay.
I think we're good.
If you like this content, I'll be putting more out, and it'll be more specifically on what I feel is the corruption of the Biden situation and kind of just what's going on with this impeachment. So I'm on Twitter at NorRobert at Twitter, and also on BitChute at Robert Nor on BitChute. Tom, what's your Twitter handle if people want to follow you?
I think I'm Tom_Kennedy. Okay. But I don't really tweet that much political crap.
Right.
I don't.
What do you? What, so I don't.
What?
So I don't. One of the problems is let me just talk in general for a second. I feel like a hack, like trying to get, hey, subscribe to my thing, and trying to get viewers and stuff like that. I feel like a hack. So one of the things that's happening is I'm following more people on Twitter. Now I'm up to like the hundreds.
Yeah.
It used to be I would go to Twitter and I was like following 6 people. So it was like you and my wife. And now it's
like, it wasn't me until like 2 days ago.
Well, right. It wasn't. But nonetheless, it was like family and friends. Now you lose those tweets in the sea of all the other tweets you're getting.
Ridiculous.
So it's kind of a weird thing.
Filling up my feed a lot this week.
Yeah.
You and people that you follow. I have muted many people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would mute me. That's why I won't do...
No, I'm not muting you. Oh. I'm muting because I get this stupid crap where it's like, oh, we think you might like this because Rob Noor and Kelly or somebody likes this. And I'm like, no, I don't like this.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I decided I'm just going to stick to the politics stuff on Twitter. So if you're my Facebook friend, you're not getting bothered every 5 minutes. Here we go. Rob putting more politics crap up here. Now, to me, it's an important thing, but I know a lot of people it isn't. And
I think it makes more sense on Twitter as well.
Yeah, it just seems better on Twitter. But I feel so dirty. Like I used to have this idea. I wanted to start a pizza restaurant, and my commercial was going to be like, we're the 3rd best pizza restaurant in town. Maybe those other 2 places are busy. Give us a try, or something like that. So I hate being like, oh man, I'm the best person to come to. You should subscribe to me because I feel dirty. And even when me and you, when we were running for office, like you're talking to all these regular people and you have to explain to them why you're better than the other 24 people running. I remember at the first, you weren't with me. Courtney was with me, but I think it was in Potter County. It was the first event I went to. And that's the first time I actually got to hear from the other candidates. And the first question they asked me is like, why are you the best person for the job? And I was like, well, I don't know that I am. I haven't heard the other people yet. Now, after having heard them, I do think I was the best person for the job. But by the way, we never really talked. Let me just ask you real quick if you're not in a hurry. Like,
No, I'm not in a hurry.
what were your, like, I kind of walked away. Don't get me wrong. I met some great people. I really did. But I kind of walked into that thinking like, oh, these people are running for the House of Representatives for the U.S. Congress. This is the same place where the Founding Fathers were, right? And so we're going to walk in and these people are going to be like, just blow us out of the water with their intelligence. I didn't get that vibe, did you?
No, not at all. Unfortunately, from somebody who's an American standpoint, I did not get the vibe that all of the people that were involved in the House race for Congress were more involved.
Yeah, it was kind of frustrating. And I still feel frustrated to this day because I'm still reaching out to the Republican Party. And it's like...
That's why I think if we could do something again, we might be able to make an impact if there was a real primary and things like that.
I will be running again, right? Like, one of the things I'm telling the Republicans I'm dealing with, and you know this was part of our strategy is, and as a Democrat, I would say the same thing to the Democrats. Both parties need to reach out to groups that traditionally don't vote for them.
Right.
Both strategically to try to win, you would do that, but also for the good of the country, right? Like,
and for long-term purposes,
right?
Because at some point, some of the people that like you are going to stop liking you, and you're going to need people to replace those people.
That's right. So both strategically, if you want to win, and for the good of the country, I think that it would be important for both parties to do that. And I understand it's difficult I'm coming at it from a Republican, it's difficult for a lot of these people to talk to people they're not comfortable with. So what I mean by that is, if you spend all of your time going to Donald Trump rallies, it might be difficult for you to then speak to people that would have went to a Hillary Clinton rally. But because of the nature of what me and you did, we're debaters, that's the type of stuff we're good at. And so when I'm talking to these Republicans, and I'm constantly talking to them, and they're like, oh yeah, can you put yard signs up? Can you do this? And I'm like, look, I don't like bragging about myself, but I was one of the top debaters in the country. I feel like from watching my material and how I talk about things versus a lot of other people, whether it be in the media or on YouTube, I think I have a really good handle of both the policy positions and kind of the political gamesmanship that's going on. I think that I'd be very effective reaching out to inner city communities, reaching out to, younger people and things like that. And they basically just tell me like, well, we kind of don't do that. It's mind-blowing. It's incredibly frustrating. And it's frustrating as me as someone who is a Republican and wants the Republicans to win. But it's also frustrating to me take the party out of it. Because you wonder, do we really have the best people, in a lot of times in governance? Or is it just...
And the answer is probably no, because the best people are probably off doing something else.
Right. And it becomes frustrating. And I'm not saying I'm the best person. Maybe there's someone out there who's slightly more handsome than me and slightly more articulate, though I find it hard to believe. But put that person there. But I don't even see the effort. That's what's frustrating.
Right.
It's not like I'm asking for money. I have no shame in telling you I've probably lost $7,000 to $8,000 from going to dinners and getting background checks into myself done. And because I'm a slob, actually buying dress clothes and things like that, in my efforts to run. And I haven't asked for one dime. Remember, you even made fun of me because people were asking me to write speeches at the convention. And they were like, how much would you charge? And I was like, just, take me out for lunch, get me a sandwich. And you and Courtney were like, yeah, don't say that.
Take real currency.
Yeah, real money is better than sandwiches, But that's how I feel. And I guarantee you...
For more sandwiches.
Yeah, I guarantee there are people on the left that would want to help the Democrats because they want to see the country do better as well as that party that feel the same way. But it just seems like that it's so hard to get into it. I mean, even, and again, I sound like I'm whining, and I am. But even when you see... like Twitter or other people, like the comments that are the most liked, it seems, are just inflammatory oftentimes. F Pelosi. And it's like, as opposed to being like, okay, well, here's 7 reasons I think Pelosi's stance or policies are terrible.
Right.
So I think we're fighting an uphill battle. And I think most people are good and the parties are trying their best to win, but it's hard work. to do the actual
Yeah.
work and to reach out. And so it's easier to just say, we'll stick with what we know. At least
Yeah.
that's my feeling on it.
But it was fun. I mean, that's undoubtedly the highlight of the year for me, was doing all of that.
Yeah, and we will do
That's
it
the real
again.
downer of the rest of the year.
We'll just so people know, I will be running for office again. And it will be probably District 15 where I'm in. I don't know when that will be, but that will be occurring. One of the things, I've had plenty of people in the Republican Party to tell me to run for a more local office, but I will not do that because I don't know much about local politics. And I'm not running for a position just so I could have a job. I'm only going to run if I think that I would be able to help and do good, So this idea of, well, run for something smaller, but I don't know that I could do, for example, living in around Clarion County, I don't know that I would be good as a county commissioner because I don't know what the county commissioner does. And I don't know much about that, right? But I do know about the national politics, so that's the only reason I ran. So we'll see. That'll be coming down the pipe in the future, and hopefully you'll be willing to help me again, Tom. If nothing else, it was fun. And I think
I thought
we will stand a much better chance.
Some people, when I tell them that, I think they think that's kind of sick, but it's okay. I thought it was fun.
Right.
I liked it a lot. It was a high every day.
That's right. And that's fine. Like, look, that's the way with these YouTube videos and stuff. It's easy to be noble and say, I ran for office or I make these videos because I care about the country. And I do. And I know you do as well. But also it's because I enjoy doing it, right? Mm-hmm. If you didn't enjoy it, then, you probably wouldn't do it as much. I also want people to have sewage, and I think that's a great thing, but I ain't out there digging ditches every day because that's not fun. I mean, it's that simple. So I also think we'll stand a much better chance if it's a regular election where we could reach out to the average person instead of having to reach out to conferees. Not that I thought a lot of the conferees were good people, but I'm just saying that's a different system. That system that we engaged in lent itself.
Well, that was only a several-week campaign with those people, and
right.
Those people knew those people. And if we at least like you, right?
Right.
Probably most of them liked you.
Yeah, I think so.
And got people that weren't. Those are not really party insiders, but for our perspective, from our area, they were party insiders.
Right. But it was only 3 weeks, and there are people involved with the party, so it's so hard to overcome that we had zero name recognition.
Yeah.
And I don't.
We can go to fairs and stuff like that and go talk to people at county fairs.
That's right. Yes. And I don't blame the conferees either, because think about it, if you're involved in your HOA, right? Homeowners Association?
Yeah. I'm the secretary now.
So if someone ran for the president of the HOA and it's someone that you've known for 6 years there, versus some outsider you've never met, you're probably most likely to be like, hey, I know this guy. He's a decent guy. So, if you're a conferee...
I've done it for 15 years, even though I don't agree with them on everything, because he does the work and no one else probably...
Yeah, right. But if you're a conferee and you've known the guy that's running for, 7 years, you're like, hey, this guy babysitted my kids. Yeah, you're probably going to vote for him. So I don't begrudge anyone that. But it's just so hard. It was so hard to overcome that, so... but I do think that the only thing that sucks is, to me, one of the biggest issues is outing corruption. And I don't know that that's as big of a... Because I know, I would always rant about the Russia stuff, and you're like, eh.
Yeah.
Luckily, we agree on a lot of the policy positions. And I also thought it was cool that you're a Democrat and I'm a Republican. But to us, I think both the idea of working for the best of the interests of the country is more important than the party. And we're both not extremist in the sense that we're unwilling to have positions that would be ideologically against, the traditional party. So,
yeah, I agree.
So, all right, Tom. Well, thank you again, everyone. If you like this video, I'll be putting more stuff out here later today. Follow me and Tom on Twitter, and please recommend me to some other people because I'm desperate to get people to listen to me, I guess. So, thank you, everyone, and have a good one.
All right. Thanks. Bye.